episode 349 of the Tetracast being recorded on June 1st, 2024. I am your substitute host, Josh Torres. Our usual host, Brian Vitali, will join us shortly. He's running late from something. He was having lunch with some coworkers and whatnot, so he'll be here shortly, he says. Joining me is the usual crew. We have Adam Vitali.
Hello?
James Galizio.
Hey, folks.
Chow Min Wu.
Hi.
Hi, hello. Thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to be talking about some non-RPGs. One RPG, but it's a demo RPG, and smaller games because we have a lot of news that happened throughout this week. We had a Sony State of Play. We had a stream from Marvelous, along with some interesting things coming out of Dragon Quest Day, and so forth. So, lighter on what we've been playing. Adam has been doing some stuff that he can't talk about. I'm not really under embargo for anything, but I've just haven't had much time to play many games this week, but it's okay. So let's start off with one of the, I guess one of the more recognizable releases in the indie space this week with Nine Souls. Nine Souls has been on my Steam wishlist for at least 2 years now, and it's come out. I've yet to get around to it because I've been, doing some other stuff here and there. But Nine Souls is from Red Candle Games. James, you've been playing this game, and to contextualize it, Red Candle Games became really well known for their last release, Detention. This was back in 2017.
That wasn't their last game, and definitely not what most people probably heard.
It's not Detention. What was the other game? I'm getting mixed up with
Devotion.
Devotion. Yeah, they're very similar titles. So yes. So Detention, then Devotion, then Nine Souls. So tee us up, James, with the developer and their newest release.
Yeah, so after the whole situation with Devotion, which not to derail, but just to give context, Devotion was a first-person sort of horror game. I don't know the exact specifics. I haven't actually played it yet. I bought it because of the fallout of what happened with the studio.
Yeah.
But long story short, Red Candle Games are a Taiwanese-based developer. And because they're Taiwanese, they have a lot of strong feelings about the mainland Chinese government.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, though, you do not put that in, you do not let that bleed over into your games, because especially on PC, which is their main platform, Steam, Steam's available in China, and unfortunately, there are issues where if you try and make a statement about the Chinese government, you're very quickly going to not have your game available on Steam much longer.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a Winnie the Pooh reference in Devotion, which was directly likening it to Xi Jinping, and basically it just...
I forget, was that through a data mine or through the game itself that was readily accessible, or was that the data mine assets? I forgot the whole situation because it's been a few years.
I don't think it really matters what it was specifically.
Okay.
The long and short of it is that their publisher basically just dropped them, and they weren't able to re-release Devotion on Steam because the publisher refused to let go of the store page. There was all sorts of issues, and I'm sure that Valve were happy that they didn't have to directly do this, but they probably wouldn't have been let back on Steam anyways, considering there was a very weird announcement at the time where, GOG was like, we'll release Devotion on GOG, and then less than a week later, they're like, well, actually, because of the passionate statements by fans of GOG, we're not going to let the game on the platform, which was very obvious. They were just like, no,
they were
bullshit.
strong-armed to taking it off for sure. So let's fast forward from that. Now they have a new game coming out, or at that released recently, Nine Souls. It is more of a 2D side-scroller Metroidvania game.
Yes, it's basically, it's very clearly inspired by Hollow Knight.
Okay.
You look at the aesthetic, and obviously it's not quite one-to-one. It's very, very beautiful. That's one of the things I want to stress right now, is that this is one of the most beautiful Metroidvanias I've played. Like, the art style is striking. It has a lot of detail in the art, but not too much where it's like overly busy. It's just like, and screenshots don't do it justice. Like, the amount of animations that some things have in the environment are insane, and especially some of the bosses. Uh, but yeah, it's a 2D Metroidvania, which is actually a pretty big jump from what they previously did. Because, like I previously mentioned, Devotion was a horror game. Detention, their previous game, was a horror game.
Mhm.
So to go from horror games to an action-packed Metroidvania, where one of their main inspirations, besides obviously being very much cut from the same cloth as Hollow Knight, was also, our Metroidvania is like Sekiro, where it's like a parry mechanic, and you really
Mm.
have to be focused on the parrying. And
I,
so the
I
way,
find it interesting that they also call out Sekiro in their description on the page where it says like they refer to it as like Sekiro light style combat.
yeah, and that
So
that fits because definitely for some bosses, you have to get good at the parry timing. You
mm,
have to get good at the parry timing. It's not
okay.
optional.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so this came out on Thursday. I'd actually picked it up because I was excited for it for a while and I wanted to give it a shot. And then I played like an hour of it because it was a midnight release. And then I woke up later and turned out that they just randomly sent us a code. So I ended up just redeeming that instead. So I was
Okay.
only an hour in. But yeah, this is incredible. Like,
Hmm.
it it's probably the best Metroidvania I've played since Hollow Knight, which I know
Oh
that
wow.
different people have different opinions on Hollow Knight, but just I think most people that have played it agree that it's an incredible game, one of the best in the genre. And a lot of it isn't just down to the level design, which is really good, but the bosses are incredible. As I said, the visuals are amazing. The level design is pretty damn good with interesting gimmicks, and the story and characters, shockingly enough, are pretty damn good too. And one thing that I'm always kind of worried about when it comes to these Chinese language games when they're translated into English is that it really does feel like a coin flip whether or not the translation is going to be any good.
Hmm.
And not that's don't even worry about it this time. The translation is really, really strong. Like, if like obviously playing it, you can tell it's a Taiwanese developer just because like there's a lot of characters with Chinese names, and it's like Tao Punk, so there's definitely some Chinese aesthetic there. But it's the translation is really, really good. You
Okay.
not an issue whatsoever.
Yeah, 'cause I mean it's not like a jab or anything, but it's just like but like my experience with like Wuthering Waves, for example, Chinese developer as well, but like following that English script was like very difficult because the way that it's always kind of must be a challenge to like kind of try to convey like very Chinese centric concepts into English because it can get very wordy and sometimes it can be lost in translation for the Western audience in terms of like followability and readability uh, of like of a script that has like so much like lore that caters to like the Chinese audience. Very
I felt
almost
that with Wandering Sword a bit.
yeah, very worldly in a way. Yeah, yeah.
It's
So
actually
that
kind of funny because when I was talking about the game and the translation a bit on Twitter, I found out that actually one of the folks that follows me is one of the people that worked on the translation and editing for the project.
okay,
So
cool.
yeah,
Yeah, no.
so him and everyone else on that team did an excellent job. I'm very happy to report. But yeah, I guess let's talk about the game.
Mhm,
It's a sci-fi. The plot sci-fi. It takes place on this island. It's not immediately clear that's an island, but it's an island called New Kunlun, which is which is on an alien planet. And I say alien planet because very quickly you find out that the main character Yi is in this like basically simulated like village filled with a bunch of people, and there's this one kid who basically he's been indebted to for the last like 2 years after he was woken up from like 100+ years like coma, because he basically got his shit kicked in. You don't know the specifics of what happened, but you just know that he was basically left for dead, but he was put into this coma by these like root things that you eventually find out is this we'll very quickly find out is this thing unique to this planet where it's I don't know the best way to describe it. There's a lot of like lore and world building that gets thrown at you pretty early on that you have to piece together. And it's not overwhelming per se, but it's kind of hard to concisely describe in just a few seconds. But long story short, Yi is a Solarian, which are basically animal people, and there's a bunch of different races of them. And the reason why him and this council are on this island is because there's been this disease that's basically threatening to wipe out their entire species, and they're trying to figure out a way to basically make their people immortal so they don't have to worry about the effects of the disease. And the people come into it where this civilization, the Solarians, they're spacefaring. They're super like high tech, and they're also spiritual. But the main thing is that they actually in this universe they found Earth and people on it, and basically abducted them to use for experimentation.
This sounds crazy. There's way more setup than I expected.
Yeah. So
That's
like
cool.
very quickly you find out that okay, so like these people are being told to they're basically being forced into like tribal era stuff where it's like okay, they're like worshiping these gods, which they aren't actually gods, they're just the people that fucking kidnapped them. And you don't immediately understand why they're basically harvesting these people because that's what they're doing. But the further into the game you realize, oh, okay. I don't want to spoil exactly what it is, but there is an explanation. It's not immediately said to you, but like as you're going through the game, it's crazy because like so much of this facility is literally like in the background. You see that they're literally like harvesting and processing human flesh in the background, and it's like this is an action platformer, Metroidvania. Obviously, like I said, this studio made horror games before. You can fucking tell.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Because there's definitely moments where, and I feel like I should stress this because you maybe won't get this from just the store page on Steam. This is not safe for work. This is not child friendly.
Okay.
This has a ton of gore. This has a ton of like violence. It has like. And I mean, Adam actually watched me play a bit of it like the night it came out, and he can attest that
It's pretty bloody.
this is not. Yeah, it's bloody. It's like one of the very first things you see as soon as you leave the village is you see a conveyor belt of the headless corpses of people being dissected and processed, like literally in the background as you're like progressing through this section of the world. That's like one of the first things you see. There's a boss that you fight like around the halfway point, which is like a genetic mutation of a Solarian that's like shackled down and been genetically engineered to basically spew out like blobs of like cells that morph into enemies. And as you're fighting it, it's begging you to kill it because its existence is pain and has been for who knows how long. And the way that fight works is, let me talk about the fights here because like every single one of them has some sort of like different gimmick to it that's really fascinating. This one, you're trying to like deal damage to it and kill it, but also it's like spawning these enemies. So you have to worry about like dealing with these enemies at the same time so you don't get overwhelmed. Every time you get its health bar to half, like to the halfway point, you have to either like hack a terminal to turn off some of its life support. And you do that twice. And then the last time, literally once to get to half, it's like, please just kill me. And you have to hack a terminal to literally decapitate it. And since you're fighting, and since the way you're fighting it is that you see its head from the foreground from the background looking forward, when it gets decapitated, you just see the entire, like, you see the bone, you see the blood, you see the guts, you see everything just coming from that wound as its head just like rolls off.
Oh jeez.
Yeah.
That you definitely do not get that vibe from like the store page. So it is good to know just from the get go if you're sensitive to gore and like violent details like that. Like just be more like there is a mature content that says, hey, there's blood and gore, but that's all you really get is those two words. There's blood and there's gore. It's
This
like
is
okay,
this
well,
is this is eventually coming to Switch and PlayStation. This is going to be a hard M. People are going to see this and be like, "Why is this rated M?" This is why. This is why. But
okay.
yeah, so that's one of the bosses, which again, the gimmick is you have to juggle dealing damage to it while also worrying about the enemies that's spawning. One of the first bosses you can face is actually like an Ornstein Smoke style. Like, okay, this one boss, instead of fighting them directly, you're fighting her two like minions who are like these zombies that she's like mind controlling with these collars and these like talismans on them. And the way it works is that when you take down one of the zombies, she'll fly in with this bell and basically revive them, and that's when you can attack her. So you have to deal with these two enemies, which hit incredibly hard for when you fight them in the game, which, by the way, I found out that probably wasn't the first boss I should have fought, but it was.
Okay, so there's like so there's kind of there's non-linearity to like the boss order that you
Yes.
can do.
So
Okay.
the way it seems to work is that the game is split into 3 chunks, where it's like the order that you fight bosses in each chunk is slightly non-linear to a degree, but
Okay.
every so often it's kind of like gated behind, okay, you've taken down these 3 bosses, here's a major story element, and like you get something that unlocks more of the map. Now you fought these 3 bosses, etc., etc.
Okay.
And some of the locations and level designs in this game are incredible. Like, I don't want to talk about it too much, but there's
Right.
one moment where you basically hook into this dreamscape where this like brain of one of the people that you need to grab this key card from, like digital key card from, is basically her brain and spinal column has basically been powering this dreamscape for who knows how long, and you go in there and it's like, okay, at first glance it looks like a pleasant dream, but there's something obviously wrong because she doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know you when she should know you, because of like the whole impetus for what started this entire plot is that your main character got betrayed by the council and she's a member of the council. So you're going through this dream, and then every so often you see these it's pleasant, it's pink, it's like it's bright. There's all these like happy images,
Is
but then there,
is the music for that area like very kind of cheery, but there's something off key or off tune to it that
yes,
like
it's
makes it
very
more
ethereal.
okay.
It's very ethereal, and then you see like these like things every so often where it's like that doesn't seem to be quite right. But then like as you're going through it, you find more and more spots where it's like, okay, you can like parry jump off of this thing in midair to like basically kind of like move further. And when you do that, it'll like actually bring off this like black aura that completely warps the background and anything it touches. And so very quickly, one of the things that you have to do is you have to platform around the fact that, and there's some things that can only be seen in the dreamscape and some things that can only be seen or interacted with in the nightmarescape. And you're juggling those two things based off of either your like little companion, your mystic nymph, which you use for throughout the game for puzzles with like basically you can send it around to like unlock shortcuts, or also like to try and hack something to adjust the flow of which direction a conveyor belt is going, that sort of thing. In this section, it gets like kidnapped immediately, and then after a certain point it gets let go, but suddenly like everything around the nymph is the nightmare zone, so you're basically chasing it or running away from it as you're doing platforming, depending on what's in the dreamscape or the nightmarescape. And it's a really fascinating
Mm.
moment that culminates in an incredible boss fight that I'm just gonna say right now, this game is fucking hard, and that boss fight took me like 3 hours.
So for in terms of like progression, like the typical Metroidvania trappings, when you beat a boss, is there like some sort of like navigational tool that you get like
Not
after sorting
every
after it?
not every time directly, but you definitely do get stuff that obviously progress forward. Like you
Okay.
get stuff like an air dash, you get stuff like eventually a double jump. The main progression thing that you get is abilities that deal with either your parry or the ability to so for example, like I said, you could like kind of parry a certain thing in midair to like kind of bounce off it. That's something that you get that you can also use for certain boss attacks, because like Sekiro, not every attack you can just parry right on its face. If it's a red attack, you can't parry it until you get the unbridled counter ability, which requires a charge up and then like extra timing for it. And then there's another type of attack where it's like it's red, but it also has like the enemy has like a green aura around them. You can jump over them for those attacks and then do that like jumping parry that way, and then you can counter attacks that way, and you actually deal internal damage to them. Which internal damage, the way it works is that if you precisely time parries or you use specific like the unbridled counter, you'll deal like soft damage to a boss. And if you don't hit them or you don't like continue parrying their attacks, after a while they will start to replenish that health. So one of the things you actually want to do, especially for later bosses, is you want to precisely time your parries as much as possible and make use of those. Like, again, the unbridled counters require even more specific timing because you have to charge it up first. So you can do internal damage. And then every time you precisely parry something, you get a charge, which you can use for these talismans, which you dash towards an enemy, and then you can like leave a talisman on them. If you keep holding the button and you don't get hit by something, you can explode the talisman, and not only will that do a set amount of damage depending on how many charges you had when you use the talisman, but also any of the internal damage will just become like permanent damage. So for bosses, one of the things that seems to be what you want to do is you really want to make use of those like precise parries to build up the internal damage and then basically hit confirm, which is really fascinating.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm like 18 hours into it. I've really been enjoying this. This is an incredible game. Once again, I guess like thanks to Red Candle Games for just like randomly sending us a code. I was going to play it anyways, but it's like, yeah, this definitely feels like one of those games where kind of like Hollow Knight, we're not really seeing too many people talk about it yet. I think once it hits like PlayStation and Switch, you're going to see a lot more of those discussions, but this is there's so much more.
Just another great game this year.
Yeah, there's so much more I can talk about.
Yeah.
Like, I really love how there is very much a story to this. Like, and there's a lot that like builds up as you're going through the game. One of the things that it loves to do is as you're progressing through these like area transitions, every so often you'll get like a hint of like Yi's backstory about like Yi, and like learn more about him and his sister. And it's like building up to, okay, what's going on here? Like, you can probably guess something not great happened to his sister early on, but obviously you're building up to it, and it teaches you more about Yi's mental state. You see him start to open up with the kid that basically followed him as he went on his rampage, and there's like a cast of actual characters. It's not just an isolation, like it's not just you're totally isolated. There is like a sort of like weirdly kind of like found family trope with the characters you interact with in the main hub, and you find these like little like doodads that you can like in different zones that you can give to people in the hub, and you get like more like lore and world building about the world, but you also like get to learn more about these characters. And that's obviously all optional, but it's really, really nice stuff. In addition to the gameplay being great, the art style being incredible, the soundtrack being incredible, and the gameplay just like, yeah, this is definitely, I would be shocked if this doesn't end up on my top 5 by the end of the year.
Nice. Yeah, I should probably pick it up sooner rather than later. It's sounding like, but it seems to have gotten like to a really great start on Steam. From what I can tell, there's a lot of positive reviews and a decent player count.
I'm interested in checking it out. That whole premise that James kind of reminds me of the Soylent Green incident in Xenogears.
Yeah, Yeah, and I really do feel like I'm underselling just how incredible this game looks. Like, sorry, last thing I want to say.
Yeah.
There's a boss fight where the lead up to it is basically the person you're fighting is he has the terminal disease. So he has to be hooked up to this like one machine to basically prevent it from progressing, but he's eventually going to die. He's terminal. He is so since he knows that he's trying to get rid of you as quickly as possible. So before you even fight him, he takes control of this like remote laser and is like sniping you in the lead up to it, and you have to actually like bait him to snipe these unbreakable crates so you can progress further. Eventually, when you get to him, usually when you're fighting a boss, you're fighting the boss directly. This one, it's not the case. So you're in the background through a monitor, and in the foreground, you see the guy like hooked up to this machine trying to control this like mechanical claw thing, like claw drone thing as it's attacking you. And it's really fascinating because you're seeing him like control it as you're also fighting it in the background. And then when you beat the claw, you hack it and it just starts shooting this laser to the right in the monitor, like at this like wall, and it's breaking through it. You see it lighting up, and then the feed cuts out. And then from the foreground, where the guy's controlling it, you just see the red glow of the laser breaking through the wall on the left-hand side. And that's so fucking cool. Like the framing and the art direction and everything. It's like it's really hard to oversell how like strong the aesthetic is here, I think.
Yeah, I believe you. That sounds like really, really cool. I cannot wait to get around to it and play this game. Like that just another really, really strong indie release this year. Like what can you say at this point? There's just so many, just like it just feels like we're kind of like in this weird like golden era of indie releases, just like in this like small pocket in the year that like just so many.
It's like I keep saying. It's like I keep saying, I was expecting May to be my backlog month, and then it turned out to be the busiest month of the fucking year.
Yeah. Just really great stuff, the Red Candle games. That sounds like they have a winner on their hands. Like a lot of just years and years of like hard work, just like really paying off. Especially after what they've gone through. So it's kind of a nice comeuppance for the developers with this release, and hopefully continues to see more success. It seems like word of mouth has really, really been doing great for this game, and hopefully it continues to just have strong success when it gets the console releases. Did they provide like any sort of like release time frame for when it hits consoles?
I don't think so. I can double check their Twitter, but they haven't said anything about the release time. I will say it runs perfectly on Steam Deck. I do know that some people have said that some people have reported crashing. I haven't. Like, I think some of the people that have had the crashes, they have they force the game to run at like the high settings where it defaults to medium on the Steam Deck. You can't tell the difference on the Steam Deck screen. You literally can't. I've put about 6 hours into it on my Deck OLED. It runs at 90 FPS. The only thing I will say is that by default, it will run at 800p. So like the full like resolution of the screen, and it doesn't stretch anything. But at least when I checked it, the user interface is a bit messed up if you play it that way. So you might want to force it to 720p just so it doesn't do that.
Okay.
But whenever you restore these settings to default on Steam Deck, it basically auto detects that you're playing it on a deck, and it forces it to 800p, which you can tell that because if you go into the graphics setting, it doesn't say that it's 800p, it says it's 720p, but it's obviously, you can see that it's using the full screen when it's at defaults. But as soon as you set it, like if you toggle it from 720p to something else and then back to 720p, it just sets it to 16:9.
Okay.
But yeah, so you can play this on deck. Ironically enough, because of how detailed the art style is in some spots, I'm not sure how much I would recommend it because there's a lot of fine detail and stuff that you're just going to miss while playing on deck, but it is a great place to play it. It is a great place to play it.
Yeah. But like if you can obviously if you have access to some place where there's like a bigger screen with higher resolution, if you really want to take in like just how detailed the art is, definitely consider that.
And obviously, like, you'll be able to run it at a high resolution frame rate on pretty much anything. Like, if I uncap the frame rate on my desktop, like, again, granted, this is with a 4090, but I get over like 500 FPS at 4K. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure if you
Very
even have,
necessary.
I'm pretty sure even if you have like a 3070 Ti or something, you could do like 4K 120, no problem. Probably even lower than that.
Okay.
Lower quality card than that. But yeah, Nine Souls, it's in some ways it's a pretty radical like change from Red Candle Games' previous works. In other ways, as we've discussed, it definitely makes use of that heritage to great effect, I'd say, as long as you understand that's what you're getting into, like heading into the game. But yeah, incredible.
Yeah,
Loving it.
it's a pretty interesting way to like how you take the strengths of like of your horror genre expertise and kind of do something different with this Metroidvania style. Like how do you work towards your strengths of like creating that really horrific atmosphere? It's like, oh, you can still have that in this kind of game in very more subdued ways, but yet it's still like kind of in your face. So that's really really cool. I can't wait to check it out. It seems like eat dinner first before you play this game or eat something, because after this maybe it seems like you won't feel like eating anything for a while.
Yeah.
But that's not the only game that you've played. And before we go into that, I'd like to welcome Brian Vitali for joining the podcast here as we're getting off of Nine Souls. Um,
Hello,
but you,
it's me.
hi, hello. How are you
Oh
doing?
yeah, thanks for starting without me. Yeah, just
Yeah,
had a social obligation that ran long.
yeah, no
So
problem.
yep, here I am.
Yep. So we're getting done with Nine Souls, which is our first game of the day, and now you've also played the demo for a game that we briefly spoke about last week, getting release date of Scars of Mars. We talked about that release date, and you decided you wanted to check out the demo for Scars of Mars. Tell us about it.
Hey, so we talked about it last week, and I think I'm not sure if it was during the podcast or after we made a joke where it's like nobody here is gonna have the time to check it out when it launches on the 19th. But I was like, maybe I will if I have the time. And then I checked the Steam page and there was a demo. So I tried out the demo and yeah, I'm gonna play this at launch. Like it's really, really fascinating what it's going for. So it is like just reading what it says on the Steam page. It says Scars of Mars is a real-time RPG, make split-second decisions to defeat enemies quickly and throwing satisfying battles. That does not describe what this game is doing. It is an RPG in the sense where you get equipment, different classes, and like you can build up a party that way. But it's also a roguelike, and it is very heavily timed. So the way it works is that you have a party, and then you go in, and as you're in this dungeon, instead of it being like a first-person dungeon RPG in the traditional sense where you're like progressing on like a grid as you're going through like different, like, and you're solving puzzles and whatnot, you're on these rails basically, and you're making different decisions whenever the paths diverge. And the number one thing you have to consider as you're going through the game is that in the like top of the screen at all times, there's a battery percentage, because your party are remote controlled like humanoids. They're not actual people. They're just like basically these robots that are being sent in to try and rescue these people on Mars. And basically, they can only keep going as long as they have battery, which keeps depleting the entire time you're doing whatever. Like in the middle of battles, it's depleting. So one of the things you have to do, and let me just explain the battle system because it's really fascinating. What if Mega Man Battle Network was a party-based RPG with friendly fire?
That'd be sounds complicated.
So the way it works is that, so you see the enemies in the background and you see them moving and like doing these attacks, and basically on your 3x3 grid where your party's standing, like parts of it will light up depending on where the enemies are like basically targeting, and you can only control one party member at a time. So you have to be really quick with positioning your party members, and you have to worry about, okay, you need to leave room for other people to move, because if you try and move when another like party member is on that square, you'll just swap places with them. So if you're trying to get away from an attack, if you swap places with them, they're going to get hurt instead of the unit that you're like controlling. So one of the things it does is that every unit has 2 abilities. They can be attacks. They can also be like healing things, like a healer. And you can see where those attacks are lighting up by looking at both the squares on your party side of things and also the squares where the enemies are standing on the upper portion of the screen. And the thing to consider, this is where the friendly fire comes in. Some attacks, most attacks, if you try and attack an enemy when another party member is in front of you, you're just going to attack the party member instead because they're in the way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the positioning also comes into play. On the flip side,
so ideally, you'd always want to like attack like near the front line then, so nothing's in between you.
Yes. Okay. But also you want to consider the fact that, again, the enemies are moving around. They're targeting like different squares. One of the other things you need to consider is, again, this is timed. If basically these squares will light up red when an enemy is charging up an attack, which is 1, your warning to get out of the way, but 2, if you attack them while they're charging up an attack, you deal extra damage. Which again, since everything is timed, that means that you want to attack at the last minute and then move out of the way as soon as possible.
Wow.
So
Jeez.
it's very fascinating because you're like juggling all your different party members with different like cooldowns and different abilities, while also looking at the like, again, the floor, worried about, okay, I want to make use of the time I can while they're charging an attack, but I can't take too long, because if I take too long, I'm going to eat shit.
So the commands that you dish out with your characters, is it all based on like, hey, the amount of actions they're able to do is how fast I can input it, or is there some sort of like in-game limiter?
There's cooldowns. Every time you use an ability, there's like cooldown. It's not very long. It's like it's a very kinetic battle system. It's really kind of hard to describe it too much. I think I did a decent job of explaining the basics.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's really fun. It's really quick, really snappy and quick. And then again, every time you defeat an enemy, you have to choose which way you're going very quickly, because again, everything's timed. When you get resources, either as a result of battle or from stuff that you find on a node in like as you're going through the path, it's a Resident Evil 4 style like inventory, where it's like, okay, again, the battery's charging, like draining as you're going through it. It's not going to be so much of a problem the first time, like the first couple of times you get something in your inventory, but near the end, it's like, okay, you want this oddly shaped like a piece of like resource that might give you the ability to spawn a new different type of humanoid once you get back to base. But you're already basically full, so you're going to have to shuffle some things around to make room. You better do that quickly, because again, you're on the clock.
This seems like it's like for people who really want like high intensity combat. That like you kind of have like, it's like inherently like you feel pressured because you both have to like manage what you're doing on the battlefield in real time, pay attention to what the enemy's doing and how you're going to react to it, plus the positioning to ensure there's no friendly fire. Plus, also this persistent battery charge.
Yeah, because you can't be too defensive.
Yeah,
because you can't be too defensive, because if you take too long, you don't know if you're going to have enough time by the end of the dungeon to actually beat the boss and escape. So it's like, again, it was a very short demo. I basically just did the first like main like a story dungeon like track, and it was like 15-20 minutes. But it's like, it's a very, very strong gameplay loop, and the way that everything like feeds into each other, like even knowing nothing else about the game, that tells me, oh, they had ideas for this game, strong ideas for this game.
They have a very very clear vision like of what identity they wanted to instill with this game.
Yeah, so if nothing else, it's like, okay, I definitely need to give this a shot, because I really liked what I played, and also, it's very rare you see something just so singularly, like, there's nothing else on the market like this, and it's
Mhm.
like a very, very strong vision, a very, very concise,
interesting.
like tightly like built gameplay loop. It's like, okay, this might be something really, really special. I need to give it the time of day.
So
So
I don't know the demo like could like because there's in a demo capacity. I don't know if it like if it'll do more or not. But in terms of like the run itself, is it just like when you're choosing like the next room or node or whatever that you're going to? Are there like any other events that can happen besides combat encounters?
yes.
Okay,
You can get
so
like extra resource drops, but the reason you might want to do combat encounters is obviously that gets you experience, which can improve your it can improve your units and give you new skills, new
because there'll be a
abilities.
forced like final fight in that run that you have to make sure that you're prepared for.
Yes.
Okay, right.
So
And then
it's like,
go for
hmm?
it. Finish your thought.
But yeah, basically it's one of those things where I definitely don't think this is going to be for everyone. If
Oh
you're
yeah.
not into the high intensity of it, like there's definitely people on like the Steam page who are like, "Oh, this is too tough. The time limit is too strict." And it's like I don't know what to tell you. I fucking love this.
Yeah, I mean, like that has to be like inherent in the design to make you feel like put hard decisions on you because that's intentional. If they're too lenient, then it'll feel like it'll break apart because there'll be no point if they're gonna give you so much time to do it. So,
Yeah.
when you rescue the survivors, you still have to consume battery charge to like backtrack all the way back. Is that the
No,
case?
it's
Okay.
I maybe in some of the later zones you have to do it, but that's not something that necessarily. Again, I only did the first like demo stage because
Okay.
that was enough to sell me on it. So I was
All
like,
right.
okay, I'll wait until it fully comes out before I play
Makes
more.
sense.
But
Yeah, I do want to
yeah,
check out the demo after hearing, what you
yeah,
have to say about it. This is like the, I do enjoy that kind of game of like how like being pushed to like make tough decisions while having like an interesting battle system. Of it. So that seems really really cool.
I'm always worried
yeah,
about being like a hypocrite because I'm like, yeah, a game that it doesn't overtly convenience the player, like that seems nice. But then I'm also like, when's the last time I played a game like that? Because so many games nowadays are like, well, we
Yeah.
don't want you to feel too stressed. We don't want anyone to, put down the controller frustrated. We want them to have a nice, easy, breezy, have like a net for them to catch them. So when a game comes out and says like, no, we have a time limit or energy limit, whatever you call it, and that's our game is designed around that. We are not going to concede. Like just the not having played the demo, just the strength of that vision alone, is commendable, I think.
Mhm. Yeah. So and for anyone interested, like you mentioned, there's a free demo out on Steam. I believe it's only coming to PC at this point. I don't think they have announced other platforms from what I remember in the news story. Um, But if you're interested at all, check out the demo. Did you try out the demo on Steam Deck?
no, I played it on a desktop. It
Okay.
definitely feels like a type of game where you're gonna want to use the keyboard and mouse. Just
Okay.
it feels like using like the WASD or an arrow keys is how it was designed. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Yeah,
I
thank
will give it a shot on Steam Deck though, and maybe report later how that feels. Like it'll probably be fine. It'll
Yeah,
probably be
I
fine.
think my main concern is like because like the readability of the text and maybe like the 3x3 grid on a tiny screen, a smaller screen.
Yeah,
Like so that's maybe a cause for concern. Who knows?
yeah.
Didn't try it yet. Okay, that's cool. Thank you for the report on both of those games, both Nine Souls and the Scars of Mars demo. Both seemed like incredible games. Nine Souls and especially Scars of Mars seems like a lot of great ideas like put forth in that demo. That's always good to hear. And once again, another maybe awesome indie game coming. So
So I wasn't
Yeah.
here when we were discussing Nine Souls on the podcast, of course, but I have seen James tweet about it pretty glowingly, so it's definitely on my
yeah,
radar.
yeah, spoke very positively about it. So yeah, just definitely when the episode comes out, you can definitely hear his thoughts on what he had to say. It seems freaking awesome.
Yep.
It seems like one of those. It's like maybe I should go jump in on it now rather than later. I was thinking about just doing it later, but who knows? Dang it! There's so many. June is also it's looking like a packed month for games now. It wasn't like you mentioned. May was supposed to be the empty month, and then it wasn't.
No month's
Right, and
ever
then
empty.
and then with June, like every seems like every other week, they're like, now we have a date for the PC Gamer Show. Obviously, we know Summer Games Fest is coming
Yeah,
up.
it's not
We're,
even
we're
just
gonna
like
we're gonna
yeah, it's
Now,
not even just
now,
about the games. Like on June, it's gonna be the onslaught of news coming in that we have to like balance as well. It's like,
Yeah,
okay.
and Adam and I, especially, like the first, the second week of June, we're basically gonna be out of commission for games because Summer Games Fest.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah. You and Adam are gonna be at Summer Games Fest. So we were talking about it before the podcast, but the lineup, it's sounding like for next week's podcast is me and maybe you, Brian, if you're gonna be here
Oh,
next week.
is that early as next week?
Yeah,
Oh,
because the Summer Games Fest hosted by Jeff Keighley is on next Friday,
oh,
and
okay.
then
All right.
so they're gonna be
Yeah.
there. So it's gonna be me, you, and then Chow holding down the fort, and anyone else on staff who
We
wants
apologize.
to jump in. So
Yeah,
you're
it
stuck
could
with
be a
us.
short podcast. It could be like stuck at 30 minutes. The new.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're gonna be like, okay, this happened in the news, and then next, this happened in the news next. We won't talk about it. We're like, okay, we'll just let it pass by. Sweet and short, 30 minutes. You know us. We never like to talk about stuff at all here. Um, so that's Nine Souls and Scars of Mars, the demo for it. And moving on over, Chow, you wanted to talk about a visual novel that you've been playing, and this is an interesting one. It is called The Hungry Lamb. It released on Steam about several weeks ago. And it's been having very, very glowing reviews, like overwhelmingly positive by thousands of reviews, especially over in China, very positively received and has sold like, I think they sold, I wanted to say over
Like a quarter.
100,000. I forgot
I
what
think it
the
sold 100,000 on release. It had like a slow following, but all of a sudden, like I don't know what happened, and all of a
yeah,
sudden
it
everybody had like
exploded in
a gold.
sales. Like it's over 100,000. I forgot what was the last
The last number was like
milestone.
230,000 or something.
Oh, really? Oh, God. So, oh, yeah, 230,000. So this has been uh, quietly, silently, like lighting up the charts in the visual novel community, especially in China. And it's also available in English as well. But it seems like the localization to the English script is a little bit rough. And they said like sometime this month in June they're gonna release a patch to improve the quality of the English script. From
Yeah,
what I
there's
remember in
some
the email.
patches like kind of like fixing some of the grammar issues. Like I could read it fine; it's no problems. I don't think
Mhm.
it's like too awful. Like some Chinese-based games, it feels pretty okay to me.
Like because of like the success and how well it's doing. Like I'm definitely interested now in this game, and it seems to be like it's one of those games that's like I know for you, Chow, it's hard to recommend because there seems to be like the whole crux of it. It seems like there's very morally moral questionable events that
Oh,
happen in it that you don't
these
want to.
events are very questionable, but the thing is, like, these are very common stories if you like watch like Chinese literature or watch like Chinese medium in
So
general,
it's
right?
one of those so it's definitely one of those games that you have to kind of you trying not to instill your own like Western values into it and like seeing like what the story is for it. So before we get too deep into it, Chow, uh, tell us what this game is, what the premise is, and your overall thoughts so far.
So this premise, it starts with this bandit that you're playing. His name is Lang, and he
Hmm.
has a partner. He calls him like Tongue. I forgot his full name, but people call him like Master Zing. But his partner is like he gossips a lot. That's why he calls him Tongue, right?
Hmm.
And basically, they're like slaughtering like wolves at the beginning, and then you know he goes into this guy said Tongue basically said I had a great job for us. It's like we'll be paid 400 like gold coins. It will make us filthy rich. And he's like, the main character's like, what? It's like, what kind of job is it? It's like, don't worry, we just need to bring lambs to across like this other nation all the way. Like, you know, once we get there, we'll be rich. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll take the job, right?
Yeah.
But as he finds out about the job, is like the job's actually doing human trafficking.
Wow.
So it's not exactly what he has in plan, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't really want to do it because that basically questions his morals. This main character has standards.
And this human trafficking, it's like it's young ladies, young
Yes,
girls. Right.
there is actually like there's like five, technically. They didn't take the boy because basically their excuse is like, well, you know what? They're gonna be like married to like rich people, right? Like nobles, right?
Mhm.
So it's like they'll have a better life. It's like you could just treat them as orphans, and now it's like if you successfully traffic to the other side, it's like they'll marry into nobles, and they'll be much better than what their current state is, right?
Okay.
So you're kind of like introduced to these, what was it? these kids, right?
Mhm.
So there's like a pair of sisters.
Yeah.
There is one is come from like a noble family, so apparently that her parents like talk shit to the emperor, so they basically slaughtered their entire clan.
Wow.
Because this is like a common thing in China back in the day. Like if you like committed like a crime or a treason like against like royalty, they basically will genocide your entire family, so that there's no course of like
Oh
revenge.
yeah, that is that's definitely something that comes up in Chinese literature.
Yes, and it's common thing in history, right? They will
Yeah.
like imagine if I committed like a treason against like the government, they'll kill me and my entire bloodline, and even probably the neighbors are involved,
Oh,
just to like make sure that no evidence is left, right?
and to set an example too, to like make sure like you don't go up against the government no matter
Yeah,
what.
so basically that's probably what happened to the third girl that comes from the richer family, right? Because the
Mhm.
maker just like, she seems pretty well dressed. It's like, why would she be like stuck here, right?
Mm.
And then the fourth girl is the main character. Like you'll see her picture all over the screen, which this girl claims that she's mute, she can't talk, right? And it's like, well, if she's a beanie, and she doesn't talk, it's like surely they'll love having one of those as their spouse or some shit. That's kind of like their excuse, right?
Mhm.
And so, anyways, the maker decided to take the job because he's like, okay, I'm not doing anything morally questionable at the end of the day because they will have better lives at the end, right? That's kind of
That's
like
just
his
self justification telling them.
yeah.
Okay.
The fifth one, they didn't take the fifth one, I believe, unless I kind of missed out what happened to the fifth one. Because the fifth one is this boy, and he had like a fever that made him mentally slow. So he's like, no, I'm not picking this guy, right?
Okay.
It's like he would be just baggage, right?
Hmm.
So basically, that's kind of it, right? And as the story goes along, uh, the girl that's mute, obviously she's not mute because she's the main character, right?
Okay.
She tries to kill the main character, but the main character, like, he's very good at fighting, so he beats her easily, right?
Okay.
And this girl basically claims that, okay, it's like, why are you trying to kill me? And she basically said that she had a dream when her sister died, saying that a swine demon is gonna eat them, and you had to go there and get revenge for me, right? And that's kind of like the premise of this game, right? Because she basically tells you the story of like people that are being sold to this lord, that they're being sold. They're not really trying to marry them. They're trying to eat them because that guy developed a fetish of eating people,
Oh
right?
God. Huh.
So that's kind of like the thing. And the main character's like, this sounds so far fetched. Is this some kind of dream kind of thing? It's like, surely this has to be bullshit, right? And that's kind of like the premise. Is like, is it true? Is it false? But like suddenly, like, as the story keeps going forward, it kind of points towards it's true, right? It's like,
This kind of this kind of weird comparison, but like, is it for to kind of get the point more straightforward across? Is this almost like an Oregon Trail situation? Like
yes, this
this?
entire story is basically Oregon Trail. You're just
Oh
trying to get
wow.
to the destination, but like the
Well,
story is
and
very bleak,
And
technically.
not only that, though, just like the way you describe the framework of the story, I can't think of a specific example, but in like Western media or Western storytelling, the idea of one final job or whatever does come up in different formats. And then like the fact that there's a little twist where it's like now this job is not 100% on the up and up. So the characters will do what they can to substantiate why they're still okay with it or why in this case, it could be perceived as being in the right. I'm going to go through with this just like it just seems like a compelling premise through
Yeah,
and through.
it's basically like coping with like a really like very questionable and morally like bad like thing to do. It's like you're telling yourself it's okay because they're gonna have like a better life. But, like it's kind of an interesting dynamic of like you're trying to tell yourself to convince yourself that like you're still okay with what you're doing just to get through it. Just the mental dynamics that you have to mental hoops you have to
Mhm.
jump through to get toward that point. It's a really really interesting um premise that you're painting here.
And
Um,
the thing that I think that a lot of people gets filtered is like when the main character beats like the girl at the beginning, like when she
yeah,
tried to
yeah,
kill
of
him.
course, of course.
The part that everyone would probably get filtered is right around this part because the main character, a common thing in like people do back in olden days China, they would tell you to take your pants off so that they could spank you. So child abuse kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
You know, you
Hey
basically
man, I got fucking hit with a belt hard.
Yeah, I was gonna say spanking is
Whenever I fucked up as a kid,
Yeah, a lot of
my
people got
parents
to
would
get
take up.
filter here because the
Yeah.
girl said some really questions like, "What are you trying to make me do? Take me my pants off." It's
Right.
like don't rape me or something like
right,
that. That's what the girl
exactly.
says, and
Yeah.
a lot of people who get filtered right in the scene because they felt so grossed out by the scene, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that's very basically where all negative reviews of, and they didn't even like go further in the story from that.
Yeah,
Right?
it's a tough thing to like kind of like convey that like in like different cultures, right? Because like there'll be some like practices in other cultures that people will find very reprehensible. Like there's like my absolute boundary. I will not cross this for because of their upbringing and their life experiences and what they've been taught. While in other cultures, that's
That's
like
kind
me,
of
like
common for me when I was a kid.
Well,
yeah, I mean,
and then if,
yeah, when I was younger, I got beat with a belt on my ass whenever I fucked up, and then like I'm sure to a lot of people here in the West, like, wow, I can't believe like your parents are like
And
awful
this,
people that they would do that. It's like no, that's a common practice over
and
like
it's one of those things where if someone did get filtered by that, like totally understandable.
yeah,
But also the mindset, at least that I try to hold, is depiction is not endorsement. Just because a story touches that subject matter doesn't mean they're saying, "Yep, we
yeah,
endorse this."
100%.
basically that's what the developers even replied to a negative review is like, "Oh, we're not endorsing this. This is what we're
Yeah,
portraying."
they're trying to be very like it's a very grounded story. They're not gonna like beat around the bush of like that's a very true life thing that would happen, like a common practice there. Culture.
Then, like I said, like if someone were to witness that and playing the game, they're like, "Nope, I don't want to. I don't want to
Yeah.
have this." Like that's also perfectly
Yeah.
valid. Like okay,
Yeah, exactly. So it's but like kudos to the developers, like sticking to they had a vision for their story in mind and won't like
Mhm.
budge on it because that they it's a very it's first and foremost like they probably wrote this story for the Chinese market.
Yeah, it's like
Mhm.
not really about the Western audience in the
Yeah,
first place, right?
yeah,
Yeah, when you talked about it being overwhelmingly positive on Steam and also the number of sales, like, yeah, it's got like 14,000 reviews. It is overwhelmingly positive. And then like the discussion forums are almost entirely Chinese, with a few
yeah.
with some English put in there, and people talking about the English and Chinese dialogue not matching up.
Mhm.
The developer responding saying it's going to be patched in uh, short order. I don't know if they've given a date, but yeah, just cool to see that the audience is really taken to this and thought pretty highly of it.
I definitely want to like pick it up once the English once they kind of finesse the English script, get that patch sorted out. Like once that patch hits, like and don't have too much going on, I definitely want to pick it up and read it because I think it sounds really fascinating from what you've been saying, child. That seems, but of course the caveat being this is not like for the faint of heart. Like if there's like some things that like you did like that child described that's like oh this isn't a story for me. That's totally cool and that's totally fine.
Yeah, the
Um,
story is actually like very bleak. Like it's like always depressing, technically,
Sure.
right? You go to like this one place, you'll encounter someone dead, and they're like, how do you make best of this situation or something like that. There's always bad something going on.
So the game part of it is it a kinetic visual novel where there's no dialogue choice that you're just kind of
Oh, there
reading a
is
board like a
dialogue
story?
choices.
Okay.
Apparently, some of the choices you make will give you trophies, and some
Oh,
of the choices I think, apparently, like if you make the main girl happy, there's like like multiple endings based on like the end based on like her affections toward the main character, right? I
okay.
think the choices are very easy. It's just don't be a dick, really, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because like some of the things, like okay, there's one part. It's like you go to like this village and you basically find that all the women and kids are dead because the men ate them all, right?
Ah,
Because they had no food thanks to the plague, right?
oh,
And there's one person that hasn't gone crazy yet, and he basically asks you to spare him some food. And the choice is like either basically tell him to piss off, or you could just give him some food. And apparently, you give him some food that raises the girl's affection, right?
oh. So
Basically,
yeah,
it's
you did a good deed. You're helping this guy out.
yeah, but you if you didn't give him any food, you also get a trophy saying times are tough or something like that. That's a
Dang.
trophy, right? Because the big character says like we
Yeah.
can barely feed ourselves. Like why would we feed this?
But there's no like is there like a food management kind of like Oregon Trail
No,
does or it's
no,
just
no,
no?
no.
Okay, so
But the
it's more just a
storyline
choice.
basically around that point they lost a lot of their food by now, right?
Oh,
Because they encountered some soldiers. They basically gave like half their food away because
mm,
well, you know, you have to bribe them because you're already committing a crime. You're doing human trafficking, right?
right.
So it's
And you
like
don't want you don't want to direct it like full on assault with the soldiers. You don't have a chance.
So there's like stuff like that happening, and it's like, yep, it's like the choices are very easy, like to figure out what is the good or the wrong choice in this game. I would say, except maybe the battle choices, like I guess maybe I always
Okay.
hate like visual novels doing battle choices. Like it's like me playing, was it maybe Fate or uh what was it, Tsukimi Hime? Like battle choices always make me
Oh
question. It's
yeah.
like, how does doing a slide make me like survive, or how does like parting tackle get me killed or whatever? I hate visual novels that have battle choices because you never know which one's the right one or the wrong one, right?
That reminds me of I was watching a streamer the other day. It's like a few weeks back. They're playing, I think it was like an old Common Rider game. It's like an FMV game. And like and you know those type of games, like it's very punishing. Like if you choose the wrong choice in a battle, it's like instant game over. You have to start at the beginning again. And then like the choice is like go left, go right, or like go down the middle. And it's like and there's no like cue whatsoever. It's like what's the right choice? You're just basically kind of going with your gut. Of like, well, I'll go right because sure, why not? It's like game over. Fuck you. Go start the game over. It's like, okay, thanks.
Yeah, like I hate choices like those. It's like come on. It's like, how the hell do I know like what is the right choice, especially like when it comes to like combat? It's like, because it's like, how does I know like using the punch is better than using the kick,
Right. Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
And
Um,
then the worst part is like if you're like playing like Tsukihime, you get like was it teach me was it
CL,
Sensei
yeah,
Seal?
CL Senpai.
Yeah, Seal
Uh,
Senpai, and
uh
she basically calls you an idiot on like why didn't you use like the slide kick or some shit?
That's
You're
true.
like, oh
That's
my
true.
god.
I'm bad at the video game. Sorry, CL Senpai.
It's like, yep, sorry, but battle scenes, choice, and visual novels are not for me.
That's cool. Yeah, thanks for talking about the Hungry Lamb on here, Chad. That seems like a really fascinating
Yeah, I don't want to like
story.
spoil too much,
Yeah,
so it's like
exactly.
it's better to kind of check it out for yourself
Yeah,
and see how it
I
goes,
think
right?
you've given us just enough to get like for anyone if you're interested, definitely seems like give it a shot. One hell of a game. So once again, one of those silent juggernauts, just happening behind the scenes of like just seeing tremendous success. Not necessarily maybe in the West, but over in China, seems like a lot of the core market there are really latching onto it. Cool
Speaking
stuff.
of like human trafficking, did you know my neighbors tried to kidnap me and try to sell me when I was a kid?
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Are you?
This
I'd say it's a very common thing in China back in the day. In
Uh,
fact, there's even a TV show where like people got human trafficked and they're like trying to find like their real parents, and they're coming on like kind of like a Jerry Springer Mary type show trying to find their real parents. And these people will pay like money to do DNA tests and like ask like the entire police force trying to track down the parents or some shit like
this is
that.
a lot to take. You just like dropped like a huge.
Like
Well, I'm
my
glad
mom
that you're
also,
okay, Chow.
my mom
I'm
also
glad.
shows like all the time. It's like, oh, it's like yes, that person find their parents, but 99% of the time is like they don't find their parents. They're probably
Did,
like, oh,
did your parents like remind you or something? Recently, it's like, did you know that this
it's almost like
happened?
saying like that guy was trying to kidnap you, and I was like, Jesus, what the
Oh
hell?
my god. Well, we're happy that you're here with us safely, Chow. I'm glad nothing bad happened to you. Jeez, man, that's insane.
Yeah,
That's
they say
insane.
like I was like during like an infant because a lot of people would like buy like I don't know like maybe boys like when they're you
Uh
know
huh. Oh,
because they probably don't have like a hero of their own or offspring of their own, and people would try to buy it, and people would just like just kidnap some random kid and just sell them off because it would be
wow,
like, oh, easy money, right?
that's uh, that's a lot to process. That's well, yeah,
That's a pretty fucked up world, but that's kind of
yeah.
like
That's a
what it is.
impossible segue here. But Brian, did you want to
yeah.
talk about any video games that you were playing, or you're good?
I'll talk about this. So
Okay.
one series that I've played on and off for like 15 years is Guild Wars, and
Uh
they're going to
huh.
be announcing a new expansion next week. They just wrapped up like their last year summer time frame. The team at ArenaNet talked about how they're going to go to a new model for Guild Wars 2 where they're going to do yearly expansions. So it'll follow the model kind of, I always think of it compared to like Elder Scrolls Online. So little bite-sized content packs where basically there's no subscription fee, so you pay in for the year to get the update, and then they give you the boxed update, quote unquote. It's not literally boxed anymore, and then they give you some post game patches. So they just wrapped up the first year of that. They announced that they're going to go into the second year of that starting next week. They'll make the announcement, and then so I jumped back in and basically was catching myself up on the last expansion, which was called Secrets of the Obscure. And like I know that the audience for Guild Wars is very, very small, and I
Mhm.
don't want to linger on it too much here, but the way that it concluded, I do feel like there's some things that I could talk about that should provide some interesting commentary just because of how strange it concluded and
Yeah,
how off
I
the
remember.
rails
I
it
forgot
got.
if it was you or someone else who told me that like the community reception to that last expansion was not favorable.
So the way that I don't speak for everyone, but
Mhm.
painting with a broad brush, when the expansion dropped last year, when it first started, when you paid for it and it released, the initial content drop was fine. It was fine to good, above average. So they had just wrapped up their overarching story. So now they're kind of having a blank slate where they're like, okay, now we can tell smaller scale stories. Now we can kind of pick up, little things that we've teased here and there or expand the world in other ways. Now that we don't have, it was kind of like they had their Kingdom Hearts 3 moment, and now they're basically saying, well, we have all these other things that we can kind of like build stories from. And they decided to do that with a group of characters called the Wizard's Court and the Astral Ward. And I'm not gonna go into too much detail here because no one cares. But basically, they're like, okay, we can tell smaller scope stories, et cetera, et cetera. And then the initial release was pretty good. They brought back a few fan favorite characters or characters you hadn't seen in a while. And in general, it was promising, I would say. Not the greatest, because the community had to get used to like the new pace of the new scope, the new pace, et cetera. But the idea was, well, they're going to give us updates. You've paid in for the updates for the year. Basically, you pay, I think, $25 for the expansion, you get it at launch, and then they're gonna do 3 post-game updates, so basically your point 1, point 2, point 3, or whatever. So,
Mm.
the premise is that they said, "This wizard court is protecting the world from the realm of demons." And you're like, "Oh, that is a pretty okay, framework for how the state of the world." Like, that's gonna carry the story forward for the rest of the game's life, maybe? Nope. They're gonna cover the demon story in a single year. So
Oh,
basically, they shotgunned through this whole premise in 4 updates. Basically, this was the most like lightning fast resolution to what is supposed to be like this eternal problem ever. So let me try to
okay.
put some
Game
context
of
on that.
Thrones season 8 style.
So
Right from the end.
basically, they say, hey, the reason why these wizards court, this astral ward, hasn't helped with any of the prior stories about the dragons is because they are constantly occupied with this demon threat. And then with the first post game update, you go into the demon realm and you basically learn like how shit it is, how garbage it is, and you're like, okay, this is just a tease. Like this is going to be like in the back of our minds for years and multiple expansions, probably, right? I think that was the idea we had, but we didn't know at the time that in hindsight they were going to wrap this story up in a year with 3 major updates. So they're just going to go lightning fast, like Avengers Endgame, every single patch. So they basically had this giant scope, but they didn't have like the amount of road to actually like give it any sort of like weight. It felt like very Disney, very cartoony. And the worst part of it is you go into the demon realm and you're dealing with like issues of possession and betrayal and are you going to be stabbed in the back, et cetera, et cetera. But what you really learn, and I'm not shitting you, is that this sounds so stupid coming out of my mouth, but
Okay.
I can't believe they went this route, is that the demons aren't all bad. They're just
Mhm.
under bad management. You literally spend like the last couple patches helping the good demons oust the bad evil demon king. And we're like, okay, there's no way they're playing that straight, right? They're going to present it that way, but there's going to be a twist. You're going to be betrayed. You're going to be stabbed in the back, right? There's no way they just play that straight. There's no way you just oust the evil demon king, replace with your good, like, well spoken demon, and you move on your way, right? That can't be how they're doing this. Nope, that's what they did. You basically
Oh,
just oust the demon king, replace him with someone who's like not promising not to eat you, and then they're like, "Thank you for saving our demon realm, grand hero." And I'm like, "Really? They played it straight. They
uh,
can't believe they played it straight." So when you hear about reception of the patch being really poor, I think it's just because of how thin it was and how what is the opposite of nuance? Just how bland and blatant. And I
yeah,
want
I
and I want
guess.
to and I want to state that at launch the promise was there. It's not like it launched as a tire fire and um, just got worse. Like it launched promising, and then it basically just went off the rails.
They
To
nailed the build up, it sounds like, and then
Yeah,
just like, but the follow through was just like it was way too much, way too fast, and did not like live up to any of the build up that they were
Basically,
going.
yeah, and not only that, but they introduced, like, a cast of characters, probably, like, 20 total characters, some more important than others, with the base expansion, and then with the post-expansion updates, they kinda focused on the subset of maybe, like, 3 or 4 characters, and it was kinda like, "Oh, okay, they're playing with the cast a little bit," but then you never saw the other characters again. For the last year, every update has been around just like this small camaraderie of like what felt like this is the weirdest part. It feels like a filler arc with like a world-ending threat. So I was trying to think. I was actually driving home, getting on this podcast late. I'm like, how do I tee this up to someone that needs like a point of comparison? But this is might be really dumb. But imagine you're in the mid 2000s and you're watching Naruto, okay?
All
And it's
right.
just transferred over to Naruto Shippuden and you're introduced to the character of Sai. Now, Sai is a canon character that feels like a filler character in my mind. Now imagine that you have a whole arc of Naruto focused only entirely completely around the character of Sai, while everything else about the Akatsuki and everything was all pushed to the side for no good reason. That's kind of what this feels like. It's like, well, I guess maybe this is going to pay dividends in the future, but it's not like not the characters I'm endeared to, not the story that I care about. I guess I'll just hold through to the end and hope that the next arc is better. So that's kind of where I'm at going into that's kind of my concluding thought. Going into like, I guess they're going to announce a new expansion next week. I hope the premise is interesting. But the thing is that because they introduced, progressed through, and wrapped up this whole arc within a single set of updates, again, they're going into expansion two of this new paradigm with like with a blank slate and I almost kinda wish they didn't, like, I wish they had something to tee off of, and they've kinda mentioned, like, they haven't introduced it. They basically teased it in a blog post where they said, "We're gonna have some of the same characters returning or whatever. We're not gonna completely, like, throw out the baby with the bathwater." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." And of course, that's just on a story front. On a feature front, the last expansion really didn't add a whole lot on a feature standpoint, but I think everyone kind of excused them because they're going to a new paradigm, etc. But if they go into the next expansion with the same thing where it's just story and nothing else, I think they're going to lose a lot of goodwill because that's kind of where they didn't really nail it last time. They have teased a new weapon type. They've basically all but confirmed that they're going to add a new spear weapon type, which I know someone not playing, they're like, is that big? Is that small? It's kind of big because it was the one thing where they can't add weapon types. The groundwork's out there. That's not something they'll ever be able to do. But if they're able to do it, um, I do think it shows a level of commitment to the game where they're like, yeah, we're gonna even though the game's on the back half of its life, we're gonna change things up. We're gonna add weapon types, maybe not add classes, but maybe they'll do other things. So I guess I'll report back next week with what they actually announce and see if there's anything exciting about it. But yeah, I'm glad they made it to the point where they said, hey, we're gonna do yearly updates, and we're in year number 2, and they're saying, yep, we're on schedule. So in terms of like producing the game, they hit all their milestones. They never delayed. They never said, "Sorry, we need more time." They've delivered. It's just that what they have delivered has been hot and cold. So there, that was my time with Guild Wars 2. I'm still also working my way through Saga. I finished my third character story, so now I'm going through my fourth.
Nice.
So still poking away at that. It's a perfect
I
Steam
need to
game,
get
like I
to
said
it,
last
so
week.
I haven't been able to
So
get to it. So,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah. So, yeah. To fill us in on what Guild Wars decides to do with that, that's kind of that sucks. I'm sorry that happened. I guess.
It's we'll live. We've Guild Wars 2's main problem throughout its entire existence has been very hot and cold, up and down, no consistency. So it's just kind of like ebb and flow. All
Yeah,
right, well,
the
we've
community seems
weathered
used to
worse.
it. Yeah.
We've weathered worse.
Uh, Okay, well, that sums up what we've been playing for this week. And before we head into the news, just as a heads up once again, there's to be probably an avalanche of news, depending on how much our RPG stuff is relevant to us next week. So this kind of teeing us up for the not E3 month, now that E3 is formally not happening this year, is no longer going to happen ever again, currently. So before we get into that stuff, I wrote a feature this week that's basically a case study of a game that we've spoken about 1,000 times. Resist. It was one of those weird sort of personal features that I don't usually do on the site. It was actually a pretty difficult feature for me to write because I was like, I want to say something about this game, but this game encapsulates so much. It has so much to say. So my angle on it was um, basically, I immigrated to the States from the Philippines when I was 7 years old, and I give a little, just a tiny little story to introduce the game on that, and just kind of the whole Asian Pacific Islander diaspora experience, because my immigration here, the circumstances around it was very, very. Uh, it was not planned, at least from my perspective. Let's say, as my mom basically kind of snuck my sister and I into the country. We're now full citizens. Like that's been long. It's not like I'm, still here, just like in secret. No, I'm a full American citizen. Has been for many years now. But if you're interested in hearing, knowing a little bit more about me and how, what that game meant to me, from my eyes, please give it a read. Hopefully, people enjoyed it, and so forth.
As we've been
Yeah.
saying, insane year for indie games. I need to
Yeah.
get back to that once I finish up Nine Souls tonight, because I played the first 2 chapters and that was enough for me to know, yeah, I'm gonna like this. I'm gonna like this quite a bit. So.
Yeah. The Our first story going in for the Sony State of Play. They showed off the first gameplay trailer since its announcement in last December at the Game Awards. Capcom showed off Monster Hunter Wilds, its flagship monster title, releasing next year for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC. And they they showed off a little bit of story, a little bit of gameplay, some new monsters. Just from the get go, the premise is you're basically traveling around with your crew on this ship that can traverse across the sand. Just there's a lot of things going on in it, but I just want to get a general sense of like first impressions. James, what did you think?
I was very much hoping it would be Monster Hunter World 2, and that seems like what they're doing, so I'm happy.
Did anyone else watch this trailer here?
Yeah, I did. So, first of all, it's all but confirmed that it's gonna be a worldwide launch for all consoles, which they didn't hit with either World or, I'm blanking on it, the Switch one?
Rise.
Rise. So,
Mhm.
like, all of those, like, I remember I unfortunately don't cover the news much on the site anymore, but, the fact that, oh, like, they would like, World came out on consoles, then it got ported to PC,
It
then
was a
Iceborne
staggered
came out on
release, pretty much.
consoles,
Yeah,
then it got ported to PC, then
yeah.
Rise was Switch exclusive, then it got to PC, then it got ported to the other consoles. So it'd just be nice just to be like, okay, Wilds is out now. You can play it on these things. Like there's no waiting and like especially with the post-launch updates because both those last World more than Rise, but both of them are kind of light service games in terms of how much post game content they get.
I
Uh,
would
so,
I would argue that Rise even more than World, especially with Sunbreak, because they had
oh
like a
yeah.
they had a very like steady stream of title updates for Sunbreak that added in a bunch of extra
I
stuff.
think
Yeah.
they had at least 5 numbered title updates for base
had a
Rise,
5?
and then they had 5 more for Sunbreak. And that's not including
they
like
had
minor
5
updates.
Yeah, they had 5 more numbered ones for Rise, and well, I mean for Sunbreak, and then they had the final one that added in the variant for the flagship, and I believe that was also there was another monster that was added. But either way, they had a steady stream of updates for Sunbreak. So
Yeah, but what I was kind of getting at is that because of the staggered launch, the title updates were also staggered. I remember when Rise came to PS4 and Xbox, you're like, this is going to have everything up through title update 3. 4 is going to launch on PC on this date, on consoles this. It was just a mess in terms of logistically keeping track of everything. So I think just it's going to launch on all platforms on this time in 2025, and then it will support it with this cadence. Like, okay,
yeah,
convenient.
yeah.
But
We don't.
go ahead.
Sorry. We don't know it yet, but I think even more so than releasing on every platform at the same time, we need to know the big question that literally everyone is asking: is there crossplay? Please tell me there's crossplay.
Yeah,
My-
everyone's crossing their fingers because Street Fighter 6 is crossplay. So
Exo Primal was
that is the hope.
crossplay, but it had the issue where it was like, yeah, it's crossplay for matchmaking, but not crossplay parties. We'll add that with an update, and I think it finally has it, even though.
Oh my god, did they just did that, like I thought that was like a thing that they added in the first 2 months of that game. I didn't know it.
No.
Oh.
They said that they weren't going to have it until the second title update for Exo Primal, which was almost a year after launch.
Oh my god, I didn't know it came that late. Jesus Christ. Oh, so hopefully that's not the case with this. So hopefully just crossplay for the get-go. No fuss like Street Fighter 6. Please God. Yeah, so what was that, Brian?
I was gonna say just some of the details that we talked
Yeah.
about is that for the first time in Monster Hunter history, the main character is fully voiced as well as the Palico. So I guess you gotta have Meowth running around along with you.
Yeah,
So
that seems weird. That's gonna be
so when I first read this, I was like, because I really like different sort of game entirely, but I really don't mind not having a voice protagonist, like especially in first person games, which of course Monster Hunter is not. And I think about World and Rise, and I'm like, you know what? There's so many times where they're talking around the character who just kind of like
Yeah.
nods and grunts and gestures that having them be voiced, I think I'm okay with it. In a lot of
Oh
other
yeah.
RPGs, I'd be like I think of Fallout 4 or whatever. I'm like, no, please don't. Or but then
I,
this one, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm okay with that.
I really wonder. So I wonder how many voice selections are there for the your custom character that are just going to be a fully voiced protagonist. Because usually there's like you have a good selection of like maybe 7 to 8 like different voices or grunts. You can make your between male and female. So I wonder how many selections they'll have for the voices then in this one, or if it's just all just like one or two. Just like I wonder if that number gets reduced because now they have like full lines to say for this game now that they're participating within the dialogue. But yeah, that's gonna be for people who played a lot of Monster Hunter games. That's gonna be a change. That's gonna be like it'll sneak up on us. Like oh my god, my character is actually responding like a normal human being. They're not going you know. It's like,
And they did talk about, I forget if this was in the press release or in the like the little developer interview follow-up. Uh, Goal is to have a seamless transition between story and gameplay, which World really struggled at. I think Rise was a little better because World had that big issue where it was like, all right, everyone like you'd have to watch the cutscene individually for a story mission or whatever, and then get your friend in. It was really kind of awkward. And then, like, if you wanted to play through the story with a buddy all the way from start to finish, then Rise was better about that. You didn't have to like wait around for cutscenes to end and then invite, but you still had those introductory cutscenes, which I think were fun, but also kind of
Yeah.
cumbersome.
It better be fixed this time. I think I've told the story before where when I was playing through Iceborne pre-release with a friend of the site, Mikhail, basically we were doing the final boss, and obviously we had to do the whole cutscene shuffle to start up the first half of it because Iceborne has the like preview fight against the Nergigante variant, and then it leads into the final boss fight.
Yep.
Both of us were fucking pissed when we beat the Nergigante and it immediately transitioned to a cutscene and then right into the upper half of the final boss fight. That cutscene, I'm not sure if people realize, will account for everyone in your party and show them all doing something. So it's like when I got to that, it's like, so you could do it the entire time.
Yeah, so more context on that. The little introductory cutscenes for most all the fights in World and Iceborne is just your single hunter, and then the monster shows up, and then he roars, and it says you found Volcana or whatever. But for that final fight, it shows everyone in your party, 1 to 4 players. And it's like, wait, you keep track of this, you know this, like on the back end, like it didn't have to be this way. What? So that I do remember feeling similarly at that point in time.
So yeah,
So-
I'm sure the developers have like heard that loud and clear. Hopefully,
Yeah.
like they've
Yeah,
accounted for that.
I'm just gonna say it right now. If they don't manage to fix that for Wilds, that's enough to dock 1 point from the score as far as I'm
That's a big
concerned.
Achilles heel. That's a big Achilles heel because that is definitely is every single like almost every single like Monster Hunter World player will like know exactly like top 3 complaints of that game. That's probably going to be in
Number
that top
1.
3. Yeah.
I think that's gonna probably be number 1.
Yeah, I mean for sure.
Cutscene shuffle.
Yeah. So, but other than that, I mean, like they showed off a little bit of gameplay, like obviously some new monsters. They showed off Dalthodon,
Uh,
Ceratonoth, which are like the big furry ones. That are the herd.
Chutacabra, the crocodile frog thing that has Brachydios animation, so Brachydios is confirmed.
We'll
I-
see. Hopefully,
I just
we talk about that, but then my friend and I still get pissed when Sunbreak didn't add Zamtrios. in it.
yeah. I mean, Brachydios though, it's a flagship. They wouldn't just tease it like that. Right?
Mhm.
And
I
for
don't know.
for
I've been
context
burned.
for context for anyone listening that maybe isn't fully, when in that trailer the Chotacabra like licked its hands, that's the exact same animation that Brachydios does when it coats its hammer arms with the slime. So
So hopefully, I
what?
mean, Brachydios is awesome. Great
Yeah,
monster.
if it isn't
Um,
there at launch, it'll definitely be a title update
yeah,
monster.
and,
I think yeah.
one of the mechanics they're trying to hit home with this trailer is like that some monsters will travel in a pack, and then your one of your jobs is like try to peel them off and like and try to cull like some of them in their pursuit of you. So you're like only dealing with them like maybe one or two at a time instead of like a whole pack at a time. So you'll see like these three monsters chasing after the player who's mounted on this. It's not a Palamute. It's called a
It's a
Sekiret.
sacred,
Yeah,
a sacred, yeah.
yeah. That's the name of your mount this time. Uh, so they're running away from them, and like part of that herd gets like runs into like a environmental object, and like a rocky like debris falls down on them, which like stuns or dazes them temporarily. So it's enough to peel them off of that herd. So that's kind of one of the new mechanics that they're teasing in this trailer. Another one is when you're fighting a monster. They mentioned in the press release that like all 14 of the weapon types are back from World. And then you have now this focus mode that will let in the press release they say this focus mode gives hunters more precise control over aiming, guarding, and attacking monsters' weak points. It's hard to tell exactly like what this focus mode exactly does without the HUD and everything. Like we don't know if it's exactly like a slow mo type of mode to give players more time to like kind of react and like respond accordingly. And if that's the case, how will that work in multiplayer? Because obviously, if it's gonna be slow mo, how's that gonna you know show in other players' screens? There'll be a hook slinger to give you contextual actions and to collect items from a distance. You'll just have like a hook to just like fish items towards you and like just hook it on over. You don't have to be on like right by them to obtain them, which is interesting. And then there's also some actions like a light bowgun user was on top of the secret, and they could fire as they were like traversing on it. So it's like, oh, you can actually like attack directly while you're mounted onto a monster. Now it's like, oh, that's interesting, huh?
I was trying to remember how it worked in Rise. I believe in Rise, if you pull out your weapon, you dismount immediately. I think I'm trying to remember because the way they describe
Yeah.
the secret in the press release is that some of it are same things that the Palamute did, like sharpening your weapon or drinking a potion while traveling from area to area. But yeah, with a greater combat focus, it seems like being able to do some weapon actions while mounted.
Yeah.
Okay. So the I know the answer is probably going to be no, but if I have a lance, I want to
Mhm.
be able to joust on my sacred.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. That'd be awesome, you know. But yeah, I'm really interested to see learning more about like how you can, because that in my mind, I'm like that's one of those like sacred things that like, oh, you shouldn't do that in Monster. You should be able to attack while you're mounted onto something and like still have mobility. Like for me, it's there's like for me in Monster, there's a balance between risk versus reward of like, you should be able to like, if you're attacking, you should commit to it. You shouldn't be able to like get like this jail out of a free card of like being able to like still move around while you're like, firing something. So, but I really wonder how they balance that out then. If they're letting you do that now, it's like, oh, will monsters be even more aggressive now to counteract that? And so forth. So there's a lot of questions still lingering, and obviously they're gonna over time. They spend a
Not
lot of time.
not the same
Yeah.
game at all, but my brain goes to, being mounted in Elden Ring, running around Radon,
Uh
flinging
huh.
magic at it and being like, "You can't hit me." It's just having a
Right,
much different
cheater!
experience
You didn't beat
compared to someone
Radon.
compared to people that actually have to, like, fight them for real.
Uh, but yeah, this looks a really cool first showing. There's a lot of really fun theories going around the Monster Hunter community of like whether the blonde woman is like the blacksmith from For You,
Little Miss Forge, yeah.
yeah, that Little Miss Forge.
There's been like over the last couple of entries, like the Monster Hunter like main dev team has a favorite entry, and it is Monster Hunter 4.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like because one thing that again, if you started with World, you probably didn't know this. The excitable A-lister in World, that was a returning character from 4. He was the Ace Cadet or Ace Rookie, I think, something like that.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. And people have
redhead?
the which one?
Is it
Which
the
one?
redhead?
Yeah,
The
Which one was
redhead, yeah.
excitable?
yeah, the
A-lister?
red, yeah, the redhead, yeah, the redhead. I was trying to remember the design. I was like, yeah, the redhead. And that's funny that you mentioned that because like in the Monster Hunter Wilds trailer, like there's like this elderly looking man that like for one of the story cutscenes that they're alluding to. He has like
He's the
hair,
one that
white
seems
beard.
to send you out on the
Yeah,
the expedition, and
He's-
he's also like
he
they
looks like the
haven't
Ace
confirmed it.
Lancer.
He has the exact same hairstyle. He has to be
Yeah.
the Lancer, yeah.
It's very distinct. So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
that really looks like the Ace Lancer, but
Yeah.
older. So
And even in like Sunbreak, the person at the smithy for Sunbreak had like character design stuff from Little Miss Forge, and was like, oh yeah, basically the intention seems to be that yeah, she knows the Monster Hunter 4 crew. But yeah, continuing the references of Monster Hunter 4. Also, can't believe we didn't say this. The biggest news of the trailer, Baby Pookie Pookie.
that's
Oh,
true.
yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh,
I hope Endemic Life comes back and that you still have the whole thing where you can like put them in your room, because that
Yeah.
was unironically one of my favorite things from World.
mhm.
And if I can catch a baby Pookie Pookie and put it in my room, that would just instant 10.
And once when I was late enough in Monster Hunter World where my gear was way overpowered and you kind of were doing fashion hunter or whatever, because I think it was before. I'm trying to remember. It was before the layered armor worked slightly differently. They had it much improved in Rise, but I had my Palico in like a plushy Pukey outfit most of the time just because it was cute.
Mm. So we'll hear more about Monster Hunter Wilds at Summer Games Fest. They've already confirmed that it'll be at Summer Games Fest, so we'll have more information on it coming shortly. Another title that was revealed at the Sony State of Play was a Ballad of Antara. I keep wanting to say Blade of Antara, but it's Ballad of Antara. It is an action RPG, a free-to-play action RPG. They didn't reveal that it was free-to-play when the trailer. It was like it was something that you found out over time. Oh, it's a free-to-play title. It is coming from developer Tipsworks Studios and publisher Infold Games. And a really slick trailer. Very action focused. And it's not really Souls-like. I think it's a faster pace than a Souls-like, but definitely going for that
If
framework of it.
So we only have about a minute and a half of footage to go through, so we're kind of extrapolating from that. Like, what sort of game is this? It does have like some appearances that are Souls-like, but it does play more like a straight up action game. It
Yeah.
seems like, but it does look like they saw that original long reveal trailer for Elden Ring, and we're like, we want our trailer to look like this trailer. So that's kind of what I feel like. Why the comparisons are there. But the
Mhm.
gameplay, at least the snippets that we can glean from the trailer, look a bit different. But I
Yeah.
actually I enjoyed the trailer. I know
Oh
we're
yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about
Me
we're
too.
gonna have a bunch of trailers on this podcast, and it's always a bit silly to talk about trailers in this audio format. So we're trying to glean as much out of it as we can to actually brass tacks. But I was actually mentioning in our Discord channel, like I looked at all the trailers in the state of play because I couldn't watch it live, and this one I was like, this one seems the most interesting. Josh was like, it's free to play. How does your interest now? I'm like, I don't know. I played Fantasy Star.
Yeah.
Maybe that's free to play.
I
So
mean,
I
it's
don't know.
not, it's
Like,
not, it's not almost, it's not to really like dampen anyone's mood on it, but it's like it's one of those like buy almost buyer beware of like
yeah,
free to play type of games are like they have a very specific structure. They're not like the
yeah.
structure like that like a normal game. Like they have to play to the strengths of like ongoing engagement over time to just justify their free to play
And MTX, yeah.
narrative.
So like,
Yeah.
so yeah, so the trailer and the way they describe the game is very traditional action RPG, epic storytelling, etc. Then the free to play are like, well, how is that going to shift the focus? We don't know yet. It's all conjecture at this point.
So at the time, it was unannounced platforms when it was revealed in the Sony State of Play, but in the press release, they did confirm that it's also coming to PC and mobile platforms. I'm like, this is coming to mobile. Like when you look at like the visual fidelity in that trailer, and you're thinking, how is this a mobile game? This is
Well, I think they say specifically Unreal Engine 5. So I guess
wow.
I didn't know whether or not Unreal Engine 5 supported mobile, but I guess it does.
Yeah,
Maybe that
yeah.
was a well-known thing
Fortnite's
and
on
I'm thinking,
there. Yeah, Fortnite's
oh,
on
I guess that
there.
makes sense there. So
Yeah, but I mean, I'm
but yeah,
like, wow, that's really incredible that they're able to like uh, develop this for mobile with that visual fidelity. I was already impressed by like its visuals in the trailer. I was like, wow, this is coming to mobile as well. That's crazy.
Mhm.
Um,
I guess
yeah,
it makes sense when you think about the fact that if they're targeting like phones, like high-end phones now, considering the fact that 2 or 3 years from now, like that's going to be the new baseline for a lot of people, that would make sense because like an iPhone 15 Pro can run like Death Stranding, it can run the most recent Assassin's Creed.
Resident Evil. Yeah,
Yeah, so with
it always
considering
just blows
that,
me away
yeah.
like how far mobile technology has been like accelerating over time in terms of like what it can support, especially in the gaming. It's like wow, wow. Um, so yeah, I mean, it seems like you'll be able to play like multiple like other different characters in it. Like we saw like an archer, a female archer in it. We saw like a golem that loses like a sling and a bell. I have no idea if that's actually a
he
playable.
reminds me of that like Dark
Yeah,
Souls character whose name I'm forgetting, but yeah, he's got like the real like heavy set armor and weapon style. You've got yeah, the
have evil or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah,
and then there's the person that has like a like some sort of like a switchblade almost, like a glaive that can extend and contract, like she's in there. And then it seems like some of the narrative thrust, and I don't know if main character is the right word, but this swordsman who has like a child on his back um while he
yeah.
fights. So pretty interesting dynamic there.
Still a ways off, but once again, like Monster Hunter Wilds, but slated to release in 2025. So we'll learn more over time. It's definitely one that I'll keep an eye on. This the Tetracast Studios, the developers that previously worked on a title called Pascal's Wager.
Mhm.
So I remember that Souls like getting some attention several years ago because it was like a Souls like on mobile devices. Interesting to see that this is their next game. We also got a new trailer that announced that Where Winds Meet is getting a PlayStation 5 version. This is originally announced as only coming to PC, but now also coming to PS5. It came out along with a new gameplay trailer. Nothing much to say about it. I mean, it just showed off like more awesome action scenes and duels. It recently held a closed beta in April that James and I got to try out. I still am unsure about like what the pricing model is of this game because when I played the closed beta,
Yeah,
it definitely was like it was structured in a way that you had an account level and like almost like a world level, almost like a Genshin
stamina
impact
system.
style. Yeah, stamina
Yeah,
system. I
like
was like,
because
it has all the trappings of like, oh, this will be a free to play title, but they have not come out and officially said that this will be a free to play title.
yeah, I hope it's not. I'm pretty sure it will be just because especially in like the Chinese market, free to play is you kind of have to do it. But like my takeaway from the closed beta was it was a surprisingly good translation. The game was really fun. Visually it looks insane.
Oh yeah,
Uh I don't know if I'll play it if it's free to play, probably not, but if it's somehow not free to play, I'll definitely give it a shot again cuz it
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know what to think. Like it's one of those games that like you look at the trailers, it's like, oh, this looks sick, and then like when you
Mhm.
actually play it yourself and see like the structure, it's like this is not what I expected, you know. Um,
Uh, from what you guys played, do you have like different main characters that you can use, or is it just like the one?
no,
Mm,
it was just that dude. I don't know. I have not seen like a gotcha system in it yet. From what I played of it, I don't know if there's like a weapon gotcha or anything in the final release or anything. But it seems to be just like that one main character. Like you get to create your main character, but it seems to be only that one main character that you're playing in it. I'm unsure. The setup for the main character is like insane too. The way that they introduce your main character, it's like the long story short, basically you have this intro sequence in Where Winds Meet when you're basically being chased by like this army, and then you play this dude like you haven't made your character yet, and you face off against the tutorial boss in it, and then after that tutorial boss, it goes into this time skip when you're this kid, and like that kid is supposed to be your main character, but you don't really see, like, you don't have a good sense of like who they are yet or what they look like, because when you finally create your main character, the context for it is like your parent that you used to control in the tutorial is like flinging like some sort of like his blade at you, and like the reflection of the blade as it goes across your character, like it it'll zoom in on your character's reflection of the blade passing by, and that's when it goes to your like your main character, create a character of like, oh, this is what you look like, this is what's shown in the reflection of that blade. It's like, what? That's crazy.
It's like those old wuxia tropes where like
Yeah,
the sword kind of
exactly.
miss, where the sword kind of miss, and you see like the character's
Yeah.
face on the reflection from the sword.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And it transitions to the created character. Like, this is what you look like throughout that reflection. And it's like,
Damn, that
okay.
sounds so cool.
It is one hell of a way to introduce your created character screen, I guess. I definitely won't forget that anytime soon, because it's very it's very out there. So yeah. Where Winds Meet also getting a PlayStation 5 release. No release date or window yet. They have not announced that. So we'll learn more. Over on the Marvelous side of things, that wraps up like the Sony state of play in terms of like what was relevant for RPG. There's other titles like Concord, which is their next live service title coming from the Firewalk Studios that Sony bought several years back, and the one that caught my eye was Dynasty Warriors Origins, because I'm a big Dynasty Warriors fan. We'll see how that shapes up.
And the
Finally
capstone
seen
was
Lubu in
Astrobot.
4K.
Right?
Yeah, Astrobot.
That it's as someone that has played the other full Astro game, the PSVR one. It definitely seems like they just were like, okay, what if we made this like 3 to 4 times as long and just had it be like a full 3D platformer for PS5? So it's like, yay! I actually have a reason to use it this year besides Falcom games.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not in our wheelhouse like for coverage, but there's a certain level of criticism that just says like Sony is pigeonholed into a certain sort of game. Like, nope, here's a really colorful 3D platformer. So I'm like, hell yeah, just for supporting.
Well, wait
game
a
like that.
second now. Wait a second now. We're called RPG site. What is Astrobot besides a robot platforming game, an RPG?
Oh, there
dang.
you go. Branching past that.
Yay! That's thinking outside the box. Yeah. I like that a lot.
But no, I don't know. Really cool that a Sony state of play can put that as their as their header or capstone, whatever you want to call it. Like, I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of this weird thing, because I also like kind of was this is outside of our wheelhouse, but like there's like a business strategy meeting for Sony before the state of play, and they had like the 3 tiers of like I forgot the exact language, but they had like their tentpole titles that are like core to their business, kind of like the God of Wars and the Last of Us, and then they had like and then one step below that is like their live service experimental type game, and then like even one step below that is like their very very experimental type, not live service, smaller titles. Like, and the examples that they gave for that is like the tentpole releases, like Spider-Man 2 sold like 11 million as their example of like a successful one of those, and then the live service one is Helldivers 2, which sold 12 million, and that's an example of one of those. And then like for the experimental type, they had like no example to give for that, because they don't consider any of their recent experimental endeavors being a successes, I guess, of that. So it's kind of one of those things. It's like knowing that has like colored like kind of like my impression of like what Sony considers, this type. Like, it's cool that they're doing it, but it's also in the back of my mind, it's like it's cool that like the Astrobot studio is getting their like shot at like doing a very full realized release. It's not just for PSVR. It's not just like a title that's like kind of like a free title with the PS5, which is cool. Like that they showed off like the controller DualSense with that title, the Astrobot's Mission. But also,
it does kind of suck.
Astrobot is like the last remaining ashes of like the Japan studio dissolution.
Yeah, this will be really good. It'll be incredible, just based off of obviously like Astro's Playroom and whatnot. It is a shame that I understand why they're not doing it for PSVR 2, but as someone that did just play the PSVR 1 game, that actually made use of VR in some really interesting ways. It's a shame that they weren't able to follow up on that with the sequel. But again, for the best, this is going to be great no matter what. So, and more people are going to be able to play it, which is, I guess, the most important thing.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. Okay, I found it. The structured content for this the tentpole releases, transformational, which is the live service games, and then experimental. That's the I guess for the Astrobot. Uh,
Mhm.
That's
the
the
new
other reason
Astrobot.
I'm going to be buying Astrobot day one is maybe it will fix Sony's first party output in the long run.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um. Oh. Uh. So anyway, moving on to Marvelous. Marvelous, the one that's relevant to us immediately that Kite wrote up a news story on is they showed off more of Rune Factory Project Dragon, which they previously announced. They showed off the protagonists Subaru and Kaguya. So it's a protagonist choice there on whether you want to choose which character you want to take control of. The big change with Project Dragon is they're taking out farming and Rune Factory, and instead you're playing as a dancer, an Earth dancer, and that seems to be the main mechanic going on with Project Dragon. So no farming, dancing.
Okay,
Uh,
so wait, that feels like I don't know. I don't know if anyone that's like a fan of the Rune Factory series would really be interested in one without the farming, but I guess we'll see. Yeah.
I would
yeah,
think
Shao,
the
what do you
farming
think?
enhanced the game a lot, so it'll be like without the farming, it just feels kind of hollow. I would say. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, because like the farming like gives you like kind of something to work towards as you're going through like the rest of the game. I don't know. Yeah,
like
we'll
one of the
see.
best thing I do like in like Rune Factory 4 is the crafting system. You literally can merge like all kinds of materials into like one weapon. So you have like this weapon that has like a million different properties because you kind of know how to do the farming, right? And then, I'm not sure how the dancing would work. I'm still kind of curious. I actually think that these two main characters look awesome, in my opinion.
yeah, their great. Their designs are great. I really like them.
Like
Great.
these are like probably the best protagonists I have seen in a Rune Factory game in a while. But other than that, I'm not kind of sure. Maybe the main highlight's the combat. I mean,
I mean,
they're
the
trying to
combat
focus.
looks the combat looks really cool too. It's very very flashy. Lots of like elemental sword swings, and then like in the middle of combat, they shot off a clip of like you fighting like a giant tree, and then you transition into like a bow and arrow mid sword swing. So it's very seamless. Seems very smooth and seems very very flashy.
So that
Um,
tree is always like a staple boss in the Rune Factory
hmm,
franchise. It's called Dead Tree,
okay.
but that version is like the one that you see in Project Dragons. Like it's dressed in like Japanese style clothing or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So it's like
So
yeah.
they're going for a certain theme for sure, with the traditional Japanese wardrobes and environment and so forth. Lots of cherry blossoms in the environment and so forth. I like it's all self shaded, like the environment and the character models. But at the same time, I can't. I feel bad for being the one to say this, but when they're like showing footage of the game, especially roaming around, it kind of looks like Genshin.
Uh,
I'm
No,
sorry.
it
I'm
kind of does.
sorry. I mean, maybe it's poison. Maybe Genshin is poisoned the well on that. It's like yeah, it looks nice, it looks great, but it's just like it kind of looks like
Also,
Genshin.
how far away is this? Because I'm not sure if you guys like keyed in on it, but it's like you saw the combat, but like if you actually looked at the environments, like it seemed like not like they were kind of like almost like a void. Like you
I don't.
look out.
I don't know if that's intentional or not because there's definitely like sky islands sort of thing, but it's definitely like it's like above the clouds. So there's not really like a sky because like the because you're already above the sky. It
Yeah.
seems like.
I
So I'm
hope it
not
doesn't
too
end up
sure.
like I hope it doesn't end up like Rune Factory 5, where there's like millions of patches to fix technical issues and try to make the graphics look a little bit better. At the end of the day, the game still barely feels playable.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's like they're in a test environment or is it like it's intentional because you're above the clouds. So honestly, I have no clue how far off it is. They didn't give a release date. They didn't give a release time frame. They just said it's in development.
I
So
think the only game from their showcase that even had a release time frame was Formagia. I think they said that was. I think that they said that was
yeah,
coming
they
this
said
year.
they said so that's a weird thing, right? So for Farmagia, it's the title that they have in development with the collaboration with the fairy tale author, and they don't describe what type of it is at all. They show off the character designs because they have this collaboration with the fairy tale author, but that's all we really know about the game. We don't know what genre it is. We don't know if it's an RPG. We don't know if it's an action game. Like I remember, like asking Adam, it's like, did they say anything else about this game?
Yeah, this is one of those things that when if you're just any old games website, you'll cover this game as sort of an interest. Like, hey, there's this new game from Marvelous with the fairy tale author and whatnot. But when you're someone like RPG site, when we have a very kind of a scope, like a more limited scope, it's like, do we cover this? Is it RPG? Is it even close? I have no idea. And we kind of have to scour the press release, and they don't really say. And the trailer, we just saw some character art. There's like a little bit of an anime cutscene. It's like we have no idea what type of game this is.
Yeah, they showed like an opening movie, and then they showed off like the character designs, their names, and then the voice actors behind
Let's
them. It's
pretend
like,
it's fairy tale Pokemon.
but I don't know. So I don't know.
They're using creatures as like.
I mean, yeah, there definitely looks like they're using Pokemon, but we're not gonna cover it like based on like what it looks like. It's like you gotta show us like mechanics and like if it's actually an RPG or not. We're not gonna go cover it based on like vibes, you know. we're gonna look at the facts and be like, okay, is this an RPG or is it not? You know, so that's
Like, I don't know. Like when I look at this Marvelous stream show, I feel like a lot of things was just kind of like, oh, here's a trailer of basically nothing really. It'll be like watching that Daemon X Machina.
oh my, I was so mad with them because they were serving up Daemon X Machina too, Titanic Scion, as like the thing that's gonna close out the show, and then they showed the project lineup, and then they're like, all right, we're gonna end this off at a bang. I'm like, okay, we're gonna finally get a new trailer that's showing off this game properly, or like what the game looks like, right? And it's like, no, it's just like some elaborate trailer to show a key visual, no in-game footage, nothing at all. So it's like, okay, what the fuck are we doing here?
So I didn't
Well,
actually watch this Marvelous stream live, but it seems like based on like compared to what they did last year, it's almost like they didn't show much more than they did a year ago.
Pretty much.
Because last year they announced Farmagia. It didn't have a title yet, but they showed some of the characters. They showed Daemon X Machina, like a mech. And it seems like this year they didn't really show much more on either of those two games.
A good chunk of it is also weird, right? Because there's a universal stream like that's also the same stream being showed for the Japanese market. So a lot of the shit was like, here's our upcoming mobile game, and then it'll show this here's our next mobile game, and then in the parentheses Japan only. And then after that's like, here's what we're bringing to arcades in Japan, and it's like, okay, there's just like a whole good set of like good block that's like you're not paying attention to it if you're in the West because like you don't care about their upcoming mobile games or arcade machines. So it's like, okay, so once again, just kind of like burning more time to hopefully get more news on like what's relevant, and so forth. Like, I think the most in-game footage that we got for things is like this Project Dragon, Rune Factory, and the next Story of Seasons, which is like not a lot of gameplay, it's just kind of showing like the in-engine footage of what the game looks like with some environment. That's it. I think that's like the most game of. Like, I think that's the most gameplay of a game that you got in that show. I think is those two titles, which is not great. Wasn't really exciting. It's just like, okay. So, the Marvelous event, not great. So it existed, I guess. James, did you have a thought? I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, not really.
Okay, I thought I cut you off. Sorry. There was also an AG French Direct stream event that happened earlier this week. That's mainly focused on developers in France or have French heritage and so forth. So the one thing that's relevant to us there was they've announced this before, but I guess we just didn't formally cover it yet. But they showed off a new action RPG, more developments that called Last Moon, developed and published by Skull Studio, that is launching in 2025 for PS5, PS4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. And it's paying homage to classic 90s RPGs. So they've been working on this game for, when I looked at the YouTube, it's been in development for at least 5 years, maybe more. And the announcements that they gave from developer Vincent Metello on this is there's a it's a it's an action RPG that has um obviously real time combat, has like skill trees. It has like 8 different weapons that have their own skill tree in it. So there's a bit of customization there, and then there are runes that you can equip to your character that'll alter gameplay elements and the way they do abilities and so forth in there. In the game, there's also puzzles that players solve to proceed as well. And they announced local co-op for the game for up to 2 players. And the game will actually dynamically change the puzzles. So if there's if you're playing couch co-op with another person, it'll have new puzzles in which both players have to actively participate to solve that puzzle. While you're playing solo, it'll just have a variant of the puzzle in which you can solve it by yourself to proceed. So it's just giving more, uh, both people something to do and actively participate in the puzzle solution to work together, which is a nice thing to keep players both engaged. So it's not like, hey, just solve this puzzle for me while I go text or something. Um, they also
I do like how just how quaint this is. Like
mhm.
the YouTube is just Vincent Mettello's YouTube channel. Like you can go there. He's got 600 subscribers. He's been updating like here last moon early footage from 4 years ago. Like anybody's just been plugging away at it, and then he's got it like the new trailer, just and some gameplay footage from the last year. So really, just kind of been working hard, I
Yeah.
presume, in his free time, just working on
Uh,
this game, and
it reminds
it's
me
kind
of
of got
Keizo's personal channel when he was working on Asta Libre. It's like, oh, here's a little
mm,
test, a battle test, that are recorded, in Asta Libre. Like, I really like that kind of low key. Hey, the developers actively working on this game and like also uploading like footage of it, of like the little test prototype test that they've been doing to during development. It's like it just feels very grounded and down to earth. It's like you can tell that like they're just really working at it. It's awesome. It's awesome. I really like that.
it's also
Um,
kind of got that like top down Zelda, like GBA DS Zelda look to it. So
100%. Yeah.
if you've missed top down Zelda, Last Moon looks like it has a little bit more of an RPG slant, but still has that same kind of feel to it, at least based on the gameplay footage.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was cool to see.
Mhm.
Um, other than that, other than those streams, we were going to onto smaller news here.
Wasn't
Uh,
there another game in the French stream that was like Lost Hellden that we covered
oh,
before?
sorry. Yeah, yeah. That was
I do have that later. We can bring
yeah.
that up.
Sorry. Yeah, I forgot I was in the
Mhm.
French stream as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, also in the French stream, they also showed off more footage of the new game from Artisan Studios, Lost Hellden.
Chow's favorite studio.
Um, that's right. It was announced just a few months ago, back in early February, and here we actually get like in-game footage with some commentary from the developers, subtitled in English, on YouTube, and they show off a little bit of running around town. So it's kind of, they call it like running around living painting, and it's very apparent in there in that gameplay footage of like, hey, it looks like your character player model is like running around in like this almost like painting. And they also showed off like the combat system in the game, like a first look at the combat system. And this is interesting because more and more developers have been um, finding their own ways of like bridging the gap and like combining action RPG and turn-based RPG. Seen it with the Trails of the Daybreak. You're seeing it with the upcoming Metaphor Refantasio, and in Lost Helden, they kind of do it, but it's not in the way that those other titles do it. Where during a player's turn, so there are still turns in the game. Um, you can run around freely and using like action point pips. You can like freely attack and do abilities, and like each of these pips are like exclusive, like are not shared in between each character. Each character has like their own pool of like action point pips, and so you can like spend them to attack in real time, to do abilities, and so forth. And that's your action phase. And once your action phase is done, it'll switch over to the enemy's turn for a reaction phase. And during this phase, when the enemy is attacking, there'll be like attack markers in which you have to evade, guard, and then there'll be certain like windows where you can actually counterattack during um, uh, the foe's attack pattern, pretty much. So instead of like where in Daybreak and Metaphor, where you're kind of having this action phase seamlessly go into a turn-based, more traditional one, this one tries to like kind of do both at the same time, where like during your turn you're doing this real time action, but there's still the concept of turns inside the combat system itself, and so forth. It's almost a little bit like FF7 remake when I was watching this. So
I can see that actually. Like
yeah.
at first I was like, no way. Actually, you know what? Not far off.
You know what? Ryan was ready to shoot you down. It was like his first gut feel. He's like, hey, you know what? Dude, you don't know what the fuck you're talking.
Yep, turns out you do.
So yeah, so that's the French Direct. Um, as I mentioned last podcast, Dragon Quest Day was coming up. So Dragon Quest Day has gone and went, and we did get a little tiny thing about Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake. There was just a little tiny post from the Dragon Quest account that came out during Dragon Quest Day that said that Legend of Erdrick draws near, and then a little tiny video, just a few seconds long, showing a revamped logo of Dragon Quest 3 with platforms listed underneath it, and those platforms were PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch, and PC. And it doesn't discreetly say just Dragon Quest 3. There's just the Dragon Quest logo, Dragon Quest series logo at one corner, and then the HD 2D. I guess they have a logo now for the HD 2D games at the other one, and that's all they said. It's like the Legend of Erdrick draws near, and here's a logo, and then here are platforms. So at the very least, we know that remake is coming to those platforms, and that new news on it should be coming soon. That's the little tiny teaser that Square Enix has decided to feed the audience. Just a little crumb, just a tiny crumb of
Yeah, so for Square Enix, it's sort of interesting because a lot of publishers are announcing stuff like this upcoming week with all these events going on. Square Enix is not yet listed as a Summer Games Fest partner. So I was wondering, well, maybe something will show up at the State of Play, and that didn't happen. So now it's like maybe this will show up at the June Nintendo Direct, which still hasn't been announced, but that's right. I'm just curious, like, when will this show up?
Or it could
Who
just
knows?
show up on the Jeff's birthday party at the Summer Games Fest.
Well, they haven't been.
So
That's what I was
also show
saying.
up
Like
there.
Square Enix hasn't
yeah.
yet been listed as a
yeah,
partner.
that's right.
They could still show up, but
Yeah.
it's I'm just curious when they'll appear.
So, hopefully between now and hopefully not next year, we're gonna learn more about Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake.
Is
So
it just free or is it like 1 to 3?
we don't know.
We don't know.
There's-
There's been rumors that it might be more
Yeah.
than just 3, but 3 is all they've announced.
Yeah. So we cannot comment. We can speculate, but we cannot comment because Square Enix hasn't officially said anything. So
and that's not us being coy. Like
Yeah.
we're
We just don't know.
extrapolating from the way that they presented this trailer. They did not say Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D. They just said Legend of Erdrick.
Yeah. And whenever like, obviously when you make a Dragon Quest character, you can name it whoever you want, but Erdrick is the most common name utilized for the Dragon Quest 3 protagonist. Just around the community. So we shall see.
And for those who don't know, Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 are all connected
Yes.
story-wise in a way.
Mhm.
So like Legend of Erdrick would make sense to refer to those as a trio.
Can you imagine though, Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 all in HD? Man,
That
if they
would be
do
like
that,
the greatest package ever. I would buy that in a heartbeat.
yeah, fucking man, I would. God's gift right there. If they nail it and it's actually excellent, oh god. But I don't know what the fuck they do for Dragon Quest 2 to make that very compelling. Because Dragon Quest 2 is solid, but it has a lot of grinding.
Dragon Quest 2 is definitely
yeah.
one of those games where you're sort of like meant to get lost, and
Yeah.
you're sort of
Yeah.
expected to fight quite a bit when you're lost to try to figure out where you're supposed to go. It's a very weird design. Obviously, it's very early RPGs. They're trying to figure out how you design these games, but today it kind of stands out.
Yeah, especially like Dragon Quest 1 also sticks out because like Dragon Quest 1 is a solo game. Like you don't have a party in Dragon Quest 1. It's just you. You're the hero.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because when I played through the first two like years back, even with all of its faults, I ended up enjoying 2 more than 1 just because it felt a bit too basic with a single
Yeah,
person party.
yeah. Because Dragon Quest One is very much like that is the classic example that the video game industry will turn to. It's like what like a game that's very much tailored for a first time RPG player. Like you've never touched an RPG ever. Like Dragon Quest One is like that gateway for a lot of people. It's like this got me into RPGs. Like and that there's a charm's basic simplicity on that, but it's also like in today's market, it might be a bit too basic. Of like it's a very beginner's first RPG experience. So if they do all 3 titles, I'm very interested to see how they handle 1 and 2 because Dragon Quest 3, I think, still stands the test of time. I think it's still very like in my mind. I haven't played Dragon Quest 3 for a long time. But in my mind, I was like, I think that game still holds up. But with Dragon Quest 1 and 2 in today's market, I'm like, what do you have to do to make that compelling to people these days?
I
So
think
I'm a
2
Dragon
is
Quest newbie. I played just 11, though I'm very eager. Like, obviously, this would be a perfect excuse to, brush up. I
Yeah,
saw some people like speculating, on a forum, just saying, "Hey, maybe this is actually the trilogy." And like, wow, really? And it's like, well, Dragon Quest One you can beat in 4 hours, sort of thing.
yeah.
And,
Uh,
and like, oh, as part of a trilogy pack, I think that would be fine. Just you get your teeth wet and learn how, at least in some way, depending on how much touch up there is. And of course, not even announced. We're speculating at this point. What a Dragon Quest One might feel like, and
it's like a wish
whether or
list, like a
not,
hopeful wish
yeah,
list for games that like we don't know are existing
yeah.
yet. Yeah.
If it is Dragon Quest One, here's how I'd like to see it done. So,
You
so.
should do like a feature. It's like, dear Santa, if this Dragon Quest One HD2D existed, please do this.
I hope
Oh.
the success will lead to like the 4 and 5, 6 remakes. I those are like
Dude,
my
Dragon
favorite.
Quest V remake, if they like that would be like that could easily be like one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, like
Like
I mean they made it
somehow.
on DS and that's like still the best version in my
Oh
opinion.
yeah, it's
Even
still
better than
so
the
good.
PS2 version.
Oh yeah.
But it's like if they remake that, oof. It's like that's game of the
I
year
still
right there.
I still think Dragon Quest V is like one of the best RPGs ever made.
It is. It totally
I
is.
still think it is. Man, I love that game so much. Ah. Anyway, that was the Dragon Quest teaser for Dragon Quest Day. Um Alice released a new trailer for SMT 5 Vengeance, The Ultimate Beginning. Um, Honestly, if you want to go, if you plan on getting this game, do not watch that trailer. I think it's a bit too spoiler. It's like a final trailer that Square Enix releases for one of their games. It's like, here's like a cool looking trailer. By the way, there's a lot of spoilers in this.
Yeah, so
Um,
I watched this trailer because I am a glutton for punishment. Like spoiler trailer or spoilers in the trailer, not I don't believe that. Let me watch. And I've played the base game. Of course, I have not played Vengeance. But that there's a I'm not going to spoil anything. I was watching. I'm like, out of context, this seems very fine for a trailer. Then there's one point like halfway through, like, wait, why'd they show that? So yeah, I am very not sensitive to spoilers really at all. And I watched this trailer, and there was a very clear moment about halfway through.
The
I'm like, wait a
moment
minute.
there is no
What?
hypocrisy in my vision.
Basically, yeah. And I'm just like, why would they show that in a trailer? Like, so yeah, if you're interested in this game at all, unless you are morbidly curious, or you've played the base game and you're not planning to revisit Vengeance or something like that, like the trailer has very clear spoilers. I guess I'll just leave it at that.
yeah,
Do
there's
what you
like
will with that information.
you
Is
watch.
it like the Terminator Salvation trailer? Has anyone seen that movie?
No, I not watched.
That's a
I know
big
I know
shift.
I know the Terminator Salvation trailer because it kind of
Literally,
gives
it's one
away
of
the
the
plot,
big
but
plot twists
the
in the
thing is, I
trailer.
know even after the movie came out, people that's actually one of those weird cases where people are like, "This trailer is better than the movie."
Is that the one? Is that the one where at the end of the that Salvation trailer, Arnold like it shows that Arnold is coming back and like
Yeah,
and he
in his
jumps
younger
from the
form.
helicopter. I
Like
forgot.
he comes
Is
in
it
a
like?
younger form. Like
Oh,
that's
okay.
it's like, and then he beats the shit out of Christian Bale, basically.
Oh, okay. I just remembered like Arnold like jumping off of a helicopter, but I don't know if that was the trailer or in the film. It's but yeah, I guess. Yeah. Don't watch an SFT5 Vengeance trailer if you're gonna play the game. Also, there's not in our document, but Atlus also released another marketing promo trailer for Vengeance, and this time they partnered with Slipknot for it, and then they showed like making masks, like the masks of like several demons. Like I like the partnership is whatever to me. Like I don't have a strong opinion of Slipknot one way or the other, but like the actual mask making process in that video was cool. I was like, oh, that's really awesome that they showed the process of how you make like these.
Also,
Almost
just
like
today, they announced or they showed off like a 2-minute Q&A with the director. And it's honestly really, really basic. They're like, can someone who's never played SMT play this game? And he's like, yes. And then in this case, yes, SMT games are not really connected. And then like, which route should you do first? And he basically said, do either. But Vengeance is the new one.
Thanks
And
for
then
the answers.
the one thing that's actually like semi-interesting, even though it's not that like useful, like, what's your favorite demon? Guess what the director's favorite demon is.
Jack Frost.
Arha Abaki. So
Oh, hell yeah! I
That's a
thought it
good
was gonna be a
one.
really basic answer. Yeah, but,
That's the clay doll.
yeah, the clay doll.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay,
That's a cool one.
that's a good one.
Yeah, that's like a memorable design. Like when people like say Arabaki like SMT, like people will remember that design. It's like, oh yeah, it's that one.
My smooth brain is like it's the Pokemon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Not based on any like actual like mythos or anything like that. Just Pokemon.
Why did they say their favorite demon is Mara? What would your opinions of that person would be?
they're like, well, they love phallic objects. Then they have a
To
fondness
me, that
for
just seems
phallic
like kind of
objects.
like the safe, like
The meme answer.
It's just, yeah. Then like, ha, he said Mara. Ha, he said, his favorite demon. That demon's the penis. I don't know. Do we have to edit that out? I don't know.
No, it's okay. It's all right.
Okay.
It's just
I don't
biology.
know. That's right. I'm like thinking like, what's my favorite demon? I don't know. There's a lot of demon designs I love. So, and as
I
get
really
into-
like
I-
the. I've not played a ton of SMT, but I like the Maganagal. It's like the lady snake that's like cut in half that they added.
Well, that's a new
Oh
one for
yeah,
SMT5.
the Filipino
Yeah.
demon. Yep.
Yeah, I like that one. That one's really creepy.
Yeah, that's a
Really
really great design.
Mhm.
Though definitely a banger. So I also like just like the basic design like Hellrider. Like Hellrider is it's so just like simple, but there's like a really nice simplicity to it.
Yeah.
It's a fucking skull dude, and the wheels on the motorcycle, it's fire. It's like hell yeah.
That's all you need.
That's all you need.
Atlus also this week released the second wave of the expansion pass for Persona 3 Reload.
Oh yeah.
A bunch of just costumes and shit.
It's just Velvet Room costumes for your cast, like the blue
that sounds such
the
a
blue
waste of
dress
money.
up, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and like 5 new tracks, which are based off of like Velvet Room tracks. I think most of them, which is sort of like cool, but it's not that substantial.
It's that we're 2 out of 3 stops till the content that people actually want from the expansion pass, which is the answer.
Don't worry, we got a reviewer on board. Not me.
But it's just one of those things. It's like you still can't. They still didn't say that like you can't purchase the answer separately. It has to be from
No, you have to get it's just kind of, we've talked about Atlus DLC before.
I know,
For $35, it's 3 waves. The final wave being the answer or episode Aegis. But like the first wave, do you even remember what the first wave was?
Was it just like crossover costumes for the other?
It was just
SMT
Persona
ones?
4 and Persona 5 costumes and music.
Okay, yeah.
And that's it. And then the second wave is just Velvet Room costumes
Velvet
and
Room.
music. It's just kind of like costume and music DLC is not unexpected and it's whatever. It's just kind of like, these are what you're filling out your expansion pass with. Okay.
There's a little bit of a tangent, but like earlier, my friends and I were talking about like there's like this big Nihon Falcon bundle on Steam, and if you don't have any of those things in it, it's like it costs $753 in it for this. It's not even like all the Falcom games because it's only for the Nisa released ones. It's not any of the Exceed released ones in it. And a lot of that cost is like a lot of the DLC that came out for all of these titles.
Oh yeah, all the Trails games have like $100 of DLC.
Yeah. So yeah, and then we're talking about this with friends. Like that seems absurd that like it doesn't have like even all the Trails games on it because for people that didn't know about that.
And Exceed has some Falcon bangers that like Zwei 2 or Xanadu Next.
Yeah, and we're talking about like how like even after all of this, Falcom still has less shitty monetization practices than Atlus. They're telling them. It's like at least with like the like all of DLC like in that the trails that East games have, like they're very whatever. They're very there's costumes and like cheat DLC and so forth. It's very you don't have to worry about it. But for Atlus, you just point over to the expansion pass and it's like oh. And like even stuff like even like the SMT5 stuff, like there's like quest lines for like demons and stuff, and like even with the re-release of Vengeance, they're still gating off DLC with like these two demons and quest lines and stuff like that.
I always find like Atlas always did lots of greedy or scummy practices, but nobody ever like questioned them.
I mean, people
I
because
think
I
people
mean,
have begun to.
people
Finally.
have questioned it, but it doesn't matter because people will still buy it. There's still way more people that are gonna buy it, and like they have no reason to ever stop or like change it up because it makes them money. Very profitable, you know. Like it's just I don't know if things will change. I don't think things will change because if it makes money, why would you ever change it? That's just the way my brain is thinking.
I mean, that is every market out there. It's like why change it if it's already profitable?
Speaking of DLC, 505 Games have shared the upcoming patch notes and content roadmap for Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. This roadmap is sort of weird because it shows like 7 items on it. 4 of them is things that are already inside the game, as far as I know, since day one. And then the rest of it is like the story expansions that that they mentioned before, like the chapter Marisa is coming August, chapter Sane September. Those are like 2 of the 3 main characters. The really interesting one is in October, the chapter of Marcus, um, which is a late game hero that you obtain in that game. Um, but it's just like that's the roadmap. It's like at least I give months to them at least, and it's also weird because it's like it's additional story chapters for a fairly closed off story. It's like that story is pretty conclusive. So I don't know what you do with these story expansions. Is
Yeah,
that
just
really?
the framing of this announcement's kind of strange. Like if they just
Yeah.
said, "Hey, we're gonna have 3 DLC episodes. They're starting in August," that'd be fine. Like, oh,
Well,
okay,
I
like
think one of the like minor updates in the roadmap, like it's just some random items, was post launch, but also it's just like who cares? Um,
yeah, like
Yeah.
in this roadmap, there's like 7, like Josh said, 7 little boxes. But like one of the boxes is like you can build a statue of Noah at your house at your home base. Like, ooh, exciting! And the next one's like you can also get a flag and get a rune and an accessory. Like they're like really spreading very little butter on too much bread for
and
like the first half
also,
of the roadmap.
this was in the review guide. Uh,
Yeah.
you know what those three story DLCs are only supposed to be like an hour each or 90
Oh.
minutes.
Oh Jesus. Yeah.
So it's
I
like
forgot that they mentioned that.
well, it's in the review guide. I don't know if they've
Yeah.
ever really said it publicly, but it's in the guide. I'm actually looking at it right now. It says 1.5
Yeah.
hours each. Okay.
And it's like it's definitely one of those. It's like it's definitely those are probably stretch goals from the Kickstarter, I
They
imagine.
are.
So
I know
there's
that. Yep.
there's some obligation, but the way they're presenting it just feels like I said. There's like the pro and con of having like a Kickstarter game, right? It's like it's executing it and how you present it, and and the execution is like it's okay, like it's definitely what people wanted out of like a spiritual successor to Suikoden. But then the way that they like present it and announce like this sort of things is like it doesn't feel great like to the wider public. It would only make more sense if you knew like kind of the pros and cons of Kickstarter development and having to like and it feels like they're creating stuff just to meet like a stretch goal, almost. And
Did I complain about the shark sand racing?
Yeah.
Dear
yes,
God.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yes.
I'm like, this had to be a
Yeah,
Kickstarter goal.
that little mini game feels like it was a stretch goal. And they had to like just make it to fulfill a stretch goal. Um, and I think that's kind of like the weaknesses of the game. Like, there's a lot of things in it that's like it feels like they're just making it to fulfill a stretch goal, and like it makes sense, but it doesn't
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
quite
it's one of those
I think we
things where
both.
it's like, sorry.
I think we both have said that if they when they make a sequel to this game, I hope they don't need to do Kickstarter. They can
Yeah,
maybe avoid some of this weirdness.
right.
And it's like, sure, I'll take a shitty racing game if it means the game when it exists otherwise, of course. But yeah.
Yeah. They also have a patch schedule along with this unveiling the roadmap. For early June on Switch, they're trying to get like the performance of Switch under control. Like ever since launch, like the Switch release of that game seems to be like on fire, pretty much. Not great. A lot of performance issues that people are suffering through that. So hopefully, they're these next hot fixes coming to Switch will sort a lot of that stuff out, if not just iron it out completely. And then a patch scheduled for mid June for all the platforms that it released on. There's just a lot of story progression issues, stability improvements, graphic issues, and basically trying to improve the technical performance of this game. Um, since there's still quite a bit of unresolved issues for this game and pretty much every platform that it's been on. So like, the range varies. So it's like each platform is suffering it to varying degrees. So
Everything I've
hopefully,
heard about the Switch version is like, I'm literally not playing this until it's fixed. Like, it's that bad.
yeah. Hopefully
Oh
they get
yeah,
it under
hopefully it's good.
control. It's hard. That's always the challenge of like kickstarting a game and then you're promising it for so many platforms. It's like, okay, what state is it gonna be in then? So it's hard. It's hard to optimize for each platform. Um, Next up, we have CI Games. They're releasing a free Clash of Champions Boss Rush update for Lords of the Fallen. This after the Master of Fate update, which uh, they released a trailer on that like several months back, like in April, basically saying, "Hey, we released a roadmap. We pretty much knocked out all the content and all the fixes that we promised on this roadmap." So on top of all that, what was supposedly their final update, their apparently not the Master of Fate is not the final update. It's this Clash of Champions update that's coming. I think it's already in the game.
Yeah, it's already out.
Yeah. So, Adam, it's just, hey, this developer continues to support the living shit out of Lords of the
Yeah,
Fallen.
so the last update was the last one that they had like explicitly written on their roadmap. And then they're basically like, just because we finished the roadmap doesn't mean we're done. Here's another one. And so
Yeah, I think that's the most interesting part of this update, where it's just like, yep, they finished out the roadmap. They kind of bundled it and gave it a title with this Master of Fate, and then they're like, yep, well, we're just going to keep giving you more. Now it's on Game Pass, and we're going to give you a boss rush mode, which is what this Clash of Champions is. So yeah, really, like if we had some sort of like we've in the past fiddled with an ongoing support sort of category, which is kind of hard to like really champion. So we can champion it here. Like they're doing an excellent job with how they've supported this game. So kudos to CI Games with how they've treated Lords of the Fallen.
Yeah, and it's also like it pays it forward as well. So whatever project CI Games decides to do, or CI Games and Hexworks decides to do next after Lords of the Fallen, it's gonna look really good for their community because now they've established the community. It's like, hey, you've really like served up that community like just
CI
in
Games
spades.
has kind of soft announced what their next game is. Let me see if I can find it.
Oh, okay.
It's
I don't think I don't
they've
think I was
had
aware.
they've had basically like Death of the Fallen is what it is. Death of the
Oh
Fallen.
yeah, that's right.
They
Yeah,
basically had like their fiscal result and like, here are some upcoming projects we're working on, and they just listed it like Death of the Fallen. Like, I wonder what that is.
That seems like very much like the movie studio thing. It's like, yeah, our next product is called this. It's slated for this window. We're working on it. Like no secrecy,
I
no
kind of
secret.
wish more. I kind of wish the game industry was more in that aspect of like, here's our next like our project lineup, pretty much, and it's like movies. It doesn't have to be like world premiere, or we have to be super secretive about this. It's like just, hey, these are the next things we're working on. We're working on it. Thank you. It's like cool, awesome. So yeah, whatever they decide to do next or decide to unveil next, and so forth, they'll have their community championing them due to their ongoing support of Lords of the Fallen, which is really, really fucking cool. Like you can tell that like these developers have made the case for themselves that like they're extremely committed to making sure that their games and their players are like satisfied and maybe even more that they bargained for. Uh, which is cool, good on them.
In my never ending backlog list, I do have Lords of the Fallen listed. Like once I learn how to freeze time, I will play
Don't
it.
forget, Stellar Blade also has a big patch that included a boss rush and a bunch of free costumes again.
Yep. Yep.
So it's like things
Yeah.
are always kicking up.
Yeah. We mentioned this a few months back when the Thaumaturge came out in early March, and Adam and I were talking about this when we were playing it, and we always found it weird, like how Full Theory Polish-based studio, kind of weird that like a game set in Poland did not have Polish voices, but now in a new update they've added Polish voiceover with the new update. And James, you wrote up about this. Um, Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we got a random like press release about this. It's like, yeah, so we just updated this game with Polish voice acting. It's like, okay, that's neat because obviously it takes place in Warsaw. And then I was reading the press release and it's like, so actually we already had like people of like a Polish like descent and background because we wanted it to be as authentic to the setting as possible. But obviously, since they already could all speak Polish, we were able to take that one step further, and basically every single English voice actor reprised the roles for this
That's so
That's
fucking cool.
additional. Yeah, so
like
that's
even
really
even Adam and I were like saying like, this game already has like really great voice acting like in English. Like the lines they speak are like delivered really really well. So it's cool to see like those same voice actors who get to speak like their mother tongue for their characters. Already
For a game
established in the
set
game.
in Poland.
Yeah, so
that's
it's
so
like
cool.
if when I eventually play this, because I do want to at least get to it before the end of the year, because it seems like it's going to be something to at least talk about when it comes to like deliberations for the top 10 at least.
Uh-huh.
I do want to play it with the Polish voice track because that seems like that'll be the
Yeah.
best way to experience it now.
I totally
I
would
I
have
was
if it was there.
I would definitely would have played it with Polish voice acting if that was like offered. Like that was that was what I was expecting going in. I was like, okay, I'll put it in Polish, and I was just really surprised that they didn't offer it. When was
I have
playing
a
it at
couple of
launch.
comments on this.
Yeah.
I kind of felt the same way when Spiders released Steel Rising a couple of years ago. That's like a game made by a French studio set in France that didn't have French voices. And I get
Right.
why, because the English voices, you're kind of playing like wider audience, right? Wider
Right.
potential audience that'll play in English rather than just the French. But I don't think they've ever updated it. Another game, the first Kingdom Come Deliverance, set in Czechia or past Czechia or whatever, made by a Czech studio, doesn't have Czech voices. Or it didn't. I don't think they ever updated it. I don't know. But regardless, the new game, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, does have Czech voices.
Awesome.
Set basically in that era. Or is it set in Hungary? I forget. Or I don't know my European history
Geography
very well.
lessons.
Yeah.
If you're here for geography lessons, you're at the wrong podcast.
So on the first Kingdom Come Deliverance on the Steam page, it does have full audio foot check. So
Oh, they might have added it.
yeah, they might have added it at some point. So I should probably, when I replay, like I should probably play it all.
And they announced the second game is going to have like several voice tracks, including Japanese, if you want. So
that I mean,
That'd be weird.
that'd be really weird. I mean, I get it, but it's like, man, that sounds really weird.
Shao
That'd
can
be really
report back on it.
just hearing Henry speak in Japanese would kill me.
I'm just expecting in like 6 months or whenever, or 5 months when this game comes out, Chow's gonna be like, "Oh, this game has a killer Seiyu cast." I don't know.
Like, did you know that Jun Fukuyama voices Henry? It's like, what?
Look,
I don't know if that's actually the case.
even when I was playing Hungry Lambs, the main girl is actually voiced by Bronya, the Chinese Bronya from Honkai Star Rail.
Chow's already on it. So that's really cool to see Thaumaturge getting that Polish voiceover support. That's really cool that they got each actor to reprise their roles. That's so fucking cool. God damn. We got an opening movie for That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime Isekai Chronicles. This game title is really long.
Look,
That's
I'll
the
tell
whole
you.
title.
I'll tell you the reason why I quit Ruring Waves. I didn't get Denjin because she's voiced by the Rimumu
Oh,
from the Slime anime.
that's Aoyuki, right? Who voices Rimuru?
Who?
Was
No, it's was it Miho Okashi? I think it was. She's
okay. I thought I thought Aoyuki voices the slime. No, I'm thinking about the Spider Show.
Yeah,
There's
she
another.
voices the spider.
Yeah, there's another show where like I don't know if they get reincarnated as a spider or whatever, but that's the premise of that show, and that she voices
It's like, can you believe it? It's like it's not getting the 5-star that's making me quit. It's not getting the 4-star that was making me quit.
because of a voice actor.
Yep.
Good.
By the way, I was just looking it up. It seems like they just added Czech voices to Kingdom Come Deliverance just last year.
Holy crap! That's very
My
recent.
guess is when they were voicing the second game, they're like, hey, let's go back to the first game and do the voices for that also. So
Why not?
maybe.
That's awesome. There you go. So yeah,
So for the opening movie for that time, I
Uh-huh.
got reincarnated as a slime. This is based off this is gonna sound very normie of me, but this is based off an anime, right? Off an isekai.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
So like,
it's based
so
off
if you
a light
base,
novel. It
so
was
if you,
based off an
so if
anime.
you,
Yeah.
so if you base a game off of an anime and then give that game an anime opening, like what are you watching? Just like cutscenes from the anime, or just like reinterpreted?
It's like new footage, I guess. For
I
like
would say
it's
it's
like
probably new footage
yeah, it's
because
probably new footage.
if you watch this show, they actually make a lot of spin-offs. They would make like a spin-off that takes place in between, or they make side stories about like some of the characters that join the party where they're having their slice of life moments. So there's like a lot of things they can make. And they even add some original content. I think they have an Ayuki voicing like the new super boss main villain for the gacha game that they made too. The original character exclusive for the gacha game or whatever. So I don't know. For this game, it could be
I guess
anything.
my easiest comparison is like the Konosuba Fantastic Days mobile game. The opening to that is all anime, even though it's already had like an anime adaptation of that story, but it's all new footage just for that mobile game. So like it's a very common practice to just like make an opening movie that's all just brand new anime footage just for that game. So it's not just spliced. Some lower budgeted games do splice in like the Jujutsu Kaisen fighting game. It's like the story of that just like stills of like the anime. Remember Infinity Strash,
yeah,
Dragon Quest?
our favorite game. Infinity
Yeah.
Yeah,
Strash.
I don't have to watch the anime anymore because I just watched it
No,
in
you still have
stills.
to watch the anime. It doesn't even cover the whole anime plot.
That's true.
That's right, Brian. Just like you got your anime filled with Infinity Strash. Did you like it? Yeah,
I like
loved
this
it.
story a lot. It just told me I should have watched the anime.
So, but yeah, it's an opening movie. It's nothing too big, not too big of a deal. We got a sales update from Capcom. We talked about this. We talked about an update for this not too long ago. But Dragon's
Quest
Dogma 2.
Dogma.
Dragon Quest Dogma.
Dreadwolf.
That's right. Dragon's Dogma 2 has surpassed 3 million sales. A few weeks back, we talked about it surpassing 2 million sales. Now it's breached, or 2.5 million. Now it's breached over 3 million. So quite a big number
And
for
it's-
a game that just barely came out, at the end of March.
It continues to get updated too. Mostly like
Yeah.
performance patch tweak stuff. But that's
Mhm.
nice.
Yeah,
Like if you haven't played it yet and you play it now, you'll have a better experience.
100%.
So,
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that is a more common sentiment. Like now more than ever, it feels like.
I mean, yeah, if you're the type of person who always plays stuff like 6 months after launch,
like,
almost
wow,
always
these
you're
games are
probably getting like the
amazing.
better versions of the game. So
I mean, there's just like an ongoing thing that's been happening forever, right? Like you are the biggest sucker if you're buying like AAA games on release because most of them don't run well on release. You always get that you get one of two things. You get one, the Twitter apology, or two, you'll get like the big like you'll get three like hot fixes after a week it's been released and it runs like 50% better a week after release. So, how I go. This is a cool one. Nice America has announced that they are releasing a demo for The Legends of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak on June 4th for Nintendo Switch and PS4. So no demo on Steam.
how would you do a demo
unfortunately.
on Steam when the game is already on Steam? Like, can you add English to the demo but not to the game?
I have
Weird.
no idea. That's a good point. So, for context, Trails Through Daybreak's PC release technically came out last year, but only had the Japanese script in it. And that PC release was for the focus on the Japanese market. And basically the process was Durante's team was already done with the PC port of it, and they're like, well, it's ready to go. Might as well just.
I mean, if you
release
want,
it.
you could just go ahead and buy it now and get a head start.
Yeah,
And then
so
it'll
it
update
seems
eventually.
it seems like the idea that NIS America had for both obviously Daybreak, but also previously Nayuta was, well, we'll just release it earlier. We'll get an initial like bump of sales, and then when we update with English, we'll be added. Oh wait, they didn't realize that just adding in English. It used to be that you could change a game's release date. You can't do that anymore, which means that as soon as the English update is released, it's not going to be on new and trending. It's not going to be on newly released, which means that a lot of the algorithm push is just not going to be there, which is why East 10's PC version is releasing the same time as the localization. Unfortunately, Nayuta and Daybreak on Steam were the sacrificial lamb for them to learn that painful lesson.
Yeah, we spoke about it when the Yuta released, and it's like, and yeah, we made this observation, and like we saw the disastrous performance that Yuta underwent on PC because of that decision, and probably soon to be Daybreak, unfortunately.
I'm sure Daybreak will do better just by word of mouth, but unfortunately, they definitely didn't realize this was going to be a problem when they made the decision for those two games.
I feel like I have no idea if you can do this on Steam or not, but like I feel like their last shot at it is somehow like convincing Valve to give them like a banner on release. Like on the Steam front page it says Legends of the or Trails into Daybreak is now out in English as a banner.
Wait. I have an idea. I need to tell NIS America this. The English patch is free DLC, and then you have a bundle that gives you the game and the English DLC, and that's a new release. That would work. That would work.
If they can do it, that'd be great. But I don't know.
That'd be weird. Like new and trending. Legend of Heroes Trails to Daybreak English patch. Okay.
Yeah. Like it shows free on it. It's like, wait, does that mean that the games? I don't know.
Like that's half a
weird.
joke, but I think that might actually work.
Well, I mean, they got to figure out. Well, I mean, they are going to figure out after this release. They figured it out after these.
They don't got much time to go with.
So this is also
by the
weird
way,
because Trails to Daybreak is releasing on PS5, and this demo supports save data transfer to the full release from the Switch demo to the full release on Switch, and then this one's weird because it's announcing it for PS4 only. So what does that mean for the PS5 version when it comes to save data transfer?
Like, is there already natural save data transfer for PS4 to 5?
Yes.
So
yes, because I remember when Trails Through Daybreak, well, Kuro's PS5 release came out, it was like 100 yen to upgrade. So I got it, and then there's an option in the menu in Kuro PS5 to transfer save data. And basically, I assume that it can also read the PS4 demos.
So you could probably like daisy chain your saves.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, also NIS America, they've already announced this, but they're going to have like Anime Expo panel with Toshihiro Kondo, and they're teasing a big announcement, which seems likely that it could be Kuro 2. And I mean, they've definitely announced multiple, like they've worked on multiple Trails games in sequence before, and that would be right after the first game releases. So it seems like it would be an apt time to announce a localization for the second Kuro.
Yeah, it's like we don't officially know what it is, but it seems
what
pretty
else would be the
obvious
big reveal?
Yeah, because it's like, well, it's at a Falcom panel. The only ever game at that time that they would be able to like have an announcement for would be Kuro 2 because Kai's not out yet.
They're going to be like, our big reveal is Orphan Felgana Memoir.
Hell yeah, here we go. Let's go.
I mean, we're still waiting for that.
That would be, honestly, that could, like, if XE just decided they didn't want to do it, I guess that could be something.
Yeah,
it would be funny.
What's weird about that one is, so it came out for Switch last year. It's coming out for PlayStation in Japan. In Japan, I mean, it came out for Switch. In Japan, it's coming out for PlayStation really soon, or it just did, like very recently or very soon. So, like, there's a Switch and a PS4 version that both need to be localized at some point.
The big announcement is Kondo's gonna grab the mic and he's gonna be like, I'm not giving you the West Trails games anymore. Thank you for your time," and leaves. That's the big announcement. Thanks, Kondo.
Well, it
He's
came
like,
out on May
you,
23rd, so it just came out.
you people are ungrateful. Fuck you.
He's
Leaves.
gonna say you can play Northern War instead.
That's yeah. That's what he's gonna
Update on the
say.
Northern
Big
War
announcement.
thing. It definitely machine translated because apparently the script has references to World of Warcraft.
Oh yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Oh man, that Northern War mobile game is something else. Uh, uh. Anyway, if you're curious to try out Trails to Daybreak, you can do it in a few days here on PlayStation and Switch. Even if you've never tried out a Trails game before, just check it out. It's the Trails to Daybreak is isolated enough from the rest of the series that it's like totally fine to just play it as a one and done game. So if you're interested at all, definitely just give the demo a shot. Um, Next up, Feline Dark Fantasy Action RPG Kristala releases in Steam Early Access on June 6th. And we call this, what do
Furry
you
Dark
call it,
Souls.
Adam? Furry Dark Souls?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
it's
this,
it's Souls-ish, and that's from their own definition, and you play as like humanoid cats. So yeah.
this was originally a Kickstarter campaign that was run a few years back that raised over $100,000.
One thing that's sort of
And
interesting about this game is the developer is basically self-described as like, I need to find out how they actually put it, but like woman-led, woman CEO, female developer. Like that's one thing they pride themselves on.
okay,
So that's cool.
that's cool.
Let me see what they. Give me a second. But
So they have a system called an innovative feline skill tree for this. Um, and a lot of the screenshots that we have, it's like kind of like in a dark environment. It's like kind of gnarly. Also, I guess for people, just heads up. One of these screenshots is like almost like a giant spider like ish creature. So if you're sensitive to giant spiders, um, this game has them. Careful. Um, one of the screenshots has the dude wearing like standard like plate armor and like a horned helmet. This is like a cat dude.
This is good.
they call it women-owned developer.
Women owned.
So
There's like a Sahagin in one of these screenshots. Cool deal. So that is Kristala, June 6th, Steam Early Access. We got a release date for Persona 3 Aegis, the first mission. It launches in Japan for Switch and PC via Steam on June 6th. As well, there's the basically a follow up.
So this is that
to-
this is that G mode Japanese feature phone port. They've had a few of these.
Yeah.
They did like that Persona spinoff a while back. So here's the original Persona. I mean, so
original
here's
Persona, yeah.
here's Persona 3's Aegis game, which I don't really know anything about.
Yeah, it's like it was like originally like for flip phones.
Yeah, like before smartphones were a thing.
Yeah, before smartphones, in the before times,
Yeah.
Major release coming from Hoyoverse. At long last, they have officially announced the release date for Zenless Zone Zero, that is coming out on July 4th, Independence Day over here in the States, for PS5, mobile devices, and PC. So if you want to celebrate your Independence Day in the best way possible, Hoyoverse has got your back with Zenless Zone Zero.
God bless America.
God bless America.
Didn't they
Right,
announce this
Chow?
on Memorial Day too?
Yeah, they did. That's right. Yeah.
Is this when Deadpool comes out? Because I'd rather go watch Deadpool than play this.
I
Wow.
forgot. That's very un-American of you, Chow. What the fuck? Actually, that's probably more American.
Holy
Oh.
ZZZ for me. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I guess I'll try it out. I mean, like I said,
I heard they improved the game a lot from the last beta, but I just have no interest in this gameplay loop, and I don't care about any of the character design as well. Even though Hoyoverse has like the best anime character designs, but it's like none of the
look,
characters sell it for me. So
I have to check out the Wuthering Waves killer, and which previously killed Tower of Fantasy, which previously killed Genshin. So
It's
I have
gonna
to.
be a project. It's like my hopes are in Project Mugen now. Everything's dead. I'm sorry.
Isn't there like another release besides Project Mugen?
Oh yeah, Azure Lane, Promethea,
Oh
and
yeah, that's
Enfield.
right.
Yeah,
Enfield.
I have zero interest in
And what
ZZ.
about
Josh 2 can cover it.
I don't know, is it quite this? What about, is that Arknight's Enfield game like similar vein, or is that sort of different?
It's like more Factorio. I guess it's more base building ish. It's like I don't know.
I know
That was a
Arknight's
weird
is like
game.
tower defense normally, but I don't know about this
Yeah,
Enfield
yeah.
game.
But Enfield's like not really. Does have action and party based combat, but it's definitely not the focus of it. From what my friend streamed to me, it's definitely I don't know. It's a weird game. I think the thing that pisses me off the most about it is how it's titled Enfield, right?
Yeah.
Your player character is called End Administrator in it. That's how they refer to you.
Huh.
It pisses me off. I hate it. I hate that. Every time they call you the
It's-
administrator, I need you to look at this. It's like,
It's like a pun. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
They're like, if he's like, we're so proud of our pun. It's like,
instead of administrators,
It's like those
administrator.
DS days when like everybody needs to be like named after what their systems are after, like your DS. Like when you're playing Trauma Center, his name is Derek Styles. So that
Oh
you
yeah,
get
yeah,
the
you're right.
DS.
Fuck, man. You're right. You're so right about that. And then lastly here, this was really interesting. This is uh Vay, the Sega CD RPG. It is getting a re-release on Steam this July by developers Sims and Samoga. Um, they've recently released a mobile port
They
of
recent
Lunar.
so Samoga is like a developer studio based in Florida. Based on their output, I have to imagine it's like 2 or 3 people at most.
Yeah.
They released Lunar Silver Story Touch for iOS like a decade ago or more, and it's been getting updated slowly the entire time, like over the course of a decade. And it's based off the Lunar CD version, but it's got like the voices of the PSP version, so it's kind of a weird, the English voices. I don't know about Japanese voices, but it's got a weird like mix of things from different versions of Lunar. And then they recently just announced like a re-release of that also came to Android. So like that was the recent
Yeah,
announcement.
that was the recent announcement.
They has also been on iOS storefronts for a while. I think it's actually been removed, but they're going to re-release it maybe similarly to like, here's our updated version of Vay, but also we're also just going to slap this on Steam because we can. So they're putting this game on Steam. I had heard of this game, but I knew nothing about it.
I think
So
they
I
did the original because for the Sega CD, Working Designs game on that. I think they ramped up the difficulty a lot of the times. Like with
yeah, they
Working
like
Design,
we're enhancing it by making it way more difficult and grindy.
I guess we should set expectations. Like, don't expect this to be like a breaking spanking port that has like very like super modern touched up graphics or whatever. It's a very basic port with some usability, quality of life things like controller support, what else, auto saving, and so forth.
like
But
I can do.
it's not like turbo mode or anything like
Look,
that.
if you sell me any of the re-release Working Design games and get rid of the Working Design changes, I'm happy with that. It's like you don't even need to like completely change the script. But if you change the script, I'm fine with that as well, because a lot of their scripts is kind of like a reflection of the times, like the Bill Clinton
Yeah.
joke or California taxes.
Anyways,
they had insane
on that
money on it.
note, so I actually linked an article from our friend at Touch Arcade, Sean Musgrave, who did a long, basically, column on this game. Like,
Yeah,
what the
it's
hell
excellent.
is this? It's actually a
Yeah.
really good read. I suggest you read it, even if you don't know anything about this game. And like, he basically argues that like they being a Sega CD RPG, the way he puts it is, took advantage of a somewhat starved audience who were willing to take anything as long as it wasn't terrible. Sega CD owners were willing to put up with Vay's bizarre up and down difficulty, heavy grinding, and bland combat simply to have something to play. It's not a well-regarded game. It's just sort of this weird footnote of RPG history. But they mentioned localization, that Samoga re-localized the game. And he even said, like, it was originally Working Designs, but it was actually probably one of Working Designs' more straightforward localizations back on the Sega CD. But this relocalized version is actually kind of like more off-kilter working designs-ish than even the working designs version was.
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
This is how he puts it. This is one of the wackiest localizations I've seen in a long time. It's filled to the brim with jokes about taxes, pop culture references so brazen they would sit easily among working design's worst, bizarre references to Bush Jr. era politics. Even the messages when you open chests are strange. I can't decide if I like the localization for spicing up the dialogue, etc., etc. Having NPCs whine about the tax rate in California really pulls me out of the setting.
Really good.
Oh man.
And this is also the voice actors have also been replaced, of course, with the finest people that Samoga could find walking around the building at lunchtime.
Hell yeah.
So you hire some
Holy
random
shit.
dude from the streets.
Dude.
Anyways, I
what?
suggest reading this column from Sean, just if you just to get any sort of idea what this game even is. It's just, yeah, it's by all accounts not a great game. It's just sort of this weird, eccentric footnote game.
It's great that, like, they're good, like, this little piece of history,
Yeah.
Does this mean
preserved
we'll
somewhere.
finally get Lunar Internal Blue on PC one
I'm
day?
actually like sort of surprised, like, okay, Samoga, this tiny-ish development company in Florida, they have a very quaint website. Seriously, go to samoga.com. But they clearly can show they have this ability to take their mobile projects and port them to PC. So if they wanted, I think they could take Lunar Silver Story Touch and make a Steam version of that. Maybe not the ideal Steam version of Lunar, but it would be something.
I imagine. I wonder.
I don't know what the
maybe they are working-
legalities are for everything.
Yeah,
here.
maybe there's either legal issues, because, like, maybe it might be like if it's launching in, like, different countries.
I feel like this is like the whole Macross Robotech situation all again. It's like somebody took the rights to it back a long time and just refused to let it go because that's
How does this company in Florida have the rights to Lunar?
It
Or at least this
could
version of
also
Lunar?
be it could also be like they're just, like, silently working on it, and it's like they'll it's ready when it's ready, pretty much, to be announced.
Maybe.
Maybe, that they're a very silent company that, like,
look. It doesn't always have to be Lunar. It could be Puppet Mail too. That's a Falcom game, you know that. So
Yeah.
maybe they can get
that
that
was
instead.
that was what Working Designs did, I think, just before Lunar.
Yeah. So that's but they all they mentioned is this July timeframe, not a specific date. Just like sometime July, it'll be on Steam. Keep your eyes peeled. You never know. So that wraps up this episode of the Tetracast. Thank you very much for listening if you've made it up to this point. Once again, next weekend and then our next episode will be kind of interesting because Adam and James have a safe flight, have a safe trip over at Summer Games Fest if you're flying. I know, James, you're probably not flying there.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
not.
I hate
Uh,
going on flights, man. How can you sleep in a plane? It's like
Well,
impossible,
luckily,
man.
living in Boise, my flight to
Mhm.
LA is like 90 minutes. Pretty short.
Oh, that's good.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's not that far.
I'm surprised.
Look
too.
at
I'm
a
like,
map.
really? But
Are you sure that's not because you gain an hour?
is that
I don't
taking
know.
us out to
Uh,
different time zones? I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
Or-
I don't know. Either way,
Either
enjoy your
way.
flight. Either way.
yeah. Aside from attending the Summer Games Fest show, they're going to be checking out a lot of games that they can't talk about right now, but they definitely have an itinerary going in. So if there's anything you want us to mention on the podcast before we record it, let us know, and then we can, shout you
Call
out
in
here.
on your phone. We'll have
But maybe even if it's like the typing in the voice channel chat, hey, please mention this, or if you want to shout out this, then just let us know. Other than that, enjoy your trip, enjoy all the games that you are checking out there, and I'm sure you'll have a lot to talk about when you come back. And for us, holding down the fort, me, Brian, and Chow, and anyone else on staff who wants to join us, we'll probably have a shit ton of news to talk about, and it's gonna be a great time, and we're not gonna die.
I'm imagining like is it Community or is it Parks and Rec where Donald Glover walking to the room with the pizza and everything's on fire? It's like that's our podcast.
Woo! So
That feels like me all the time.
no, you're good. So yeah, until then, stay safe and have a great rest of your day, rest of your weekend, wherever you are. And yeah, I'm sure I don't know what to expect next week. I don't know. Any last minute hopes, dreams of what you want to see next week at not E3? Kingdom
P3.
Hearts 4, P3, Weed 3,
G3.
G3.
S3.
If we could see like gameplay of like prove that this Dragon Age game is real, that'd be good.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
there's been
Yes.
it's been heavily suggested that Dragon Age will be shown somewhere, and it technically hasn't yet. We've seen leaks, but not official.
Yeah, we would like to see what that game looks like when like you actually get on the controller and like play the game. That'd be great. That'd be
I hope
awesome.
there's a Square Enix showing. I really want to see a Final Fantasy Tactics remaster being real.
Okay, all right. You're shooting for the moon. I like that. I would like a release date for Visions of Mana. That's my small hope and dream. I would
That's a
like
good
to-
one.
September 14. How's that? Random date.
I mean, that's kind of close to Kainu Kiseki, but fine. Okay, sure.
I mean, it's close to Reinatus in English.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Fuck.
We will finally have another good game.
Okay, thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining us. And until next time on the Tetracast, take care. Have an awesome day. Peace out.